The Whine and Cheese Show is a Metaverse and NFT discussion interview series brought to you by Upland Development United and the host BEN68 and Morecheese. Warning, the information and opinions within are solely the views of the individuals involved, contains content not suitable for anyone.
Hallelujah and praise the Llama. Welcome to Season 1, Episode 10 of the Whine and Cheese in the Metaverses show. I'm BEN68 and today Morecheeese and I spoke to Uplando, who is a huge and very popular personality within the Upland Metaverse and also a great personal friend of both Morecheeese and I.
We talked to Uplando about his history in Upland and how he evolved. He also talked to us about the Upland Cafe and future ideas for what it may become. And finally, he let us know where he sees Upland in 1 and 5 years from now.
So put down your cyanide pill, grab yourself some Kool-Aid and prepare to get schooled on all things Upland in an extra long, super shitty episode
Of the worst show ever.
Whine and cheese. Time for wine and cheese. Wine and cheese. Time for wine and cheese. Cheese. One is a wanker, one's slinging stones. One's from Australia, one's from the Bronx. Talking about the Metaverse and NFTs. Interviewing all the real crypto G's.
Hello.
Oh,
So what is this, number 10?
so number 10, yes. It feels like we've missed one because we're recording a bit later in the week than we usually do. It kind of feels a bit strange, but anyway.
We did this before
Yeah.
for Left House and his brother,
Yeah.
I believe. Yeah.
It's probably because I just had such a long week at work or something, I don't know.
Yeah, you always look so put together. You still look put together. Don't get me wrong. Just a little bit tired, and I like it because I hate being the only one being verklempt or whatever the word is.
Cool.
But
Before you get going, I got
All
something
right.
for you.
oh yeah,
Now, we do know that. Did you end up getting your prize because you had, well, maybe we should backtrack a little bit. For Halloween,
And
Cheese
Upland?
came up with the idea to do a little event within the Upland Development United team to create, what were the specifics? Create a mask, just create any mask based on cardboard and paper and things you could find at home. And what did you make?
I made my Black Explorer as a mask, and you could see that in one of our Halloween edition team meetings.
Yep, and it just so happened that just after the team meeting, Team Upland came up with the idea for
A costume prize or whatnot.
yeah, you had to do your Block Explorer as a Halloween costume. So you won both the UDU competition and you also got a prize for the official Upland one. Did that come through?
Oh yeah, right away. It was very nice. Lizette sent me a message, and then what's his name? Gary sent me a message, and they were very nice, and they gave my prize right away, which is cool. So that was nice.
Nice. Unlike the UDU where we didn't even work out what the prize was going to be, and we've gone backwards and forwards. And I came up with something that we're going to run now, which I haven't given you any hints. You don't know anything about it, so this should be fun. I shall share screen. You look a bit nervous there, lady. What's going on?
I'm always nervous.
Okay, so you got this. And you have the Wheel of Cheese. Now, the prizes are, there's one MTU property. There are 2 Lone Mountain properties, 3 school properties. There's a bonus bush turkey prize. 50,000. I think there's two. Yeah, there's 2 50,000 UPEX, 1 100,000 UPEX, and another sneaky Whine and Cheese prize. So,
Oh my god!
tell me when to click, and I shall click.
Click when it's on the green.
Oh, I'll wait for this 50,000 one to come through. And we are off. All right. I'm hoping it's not the bush turkey.
What's that? What's that one?
I'll have to remind you about it. There you go. So
Yay!
I owe you 1 LMU.
Aw, this was awesome. Thank you, Ben.
No worries.
This
So
is
the
more
bush
than I
turkey,
could
you
have
forgot
asked
that
for.
story. You forgot the bush turkey story.
Well, I thought you hunted them. And
No,
you
they're
said, no,
my-
you like them.
No, there's that whole thing. Yeah, well, they're my pets at my house in the backyard. And remember, I've sent you photos where they actually come inside the house to be fed and that sort of thing. And way back in the day, back in the Venom days, I dropped a thing where if Up Squared Land was ever going to go live, I was going to do nude cartwheels in the backyard. But turns out that idea got stolen, and that Up Squared Land all fizzled and died. So
Trade my prize. You mean that we almost got to see that?
almost,
Ah,
yes.
Flip. I gotta win more prizes.
So I'm safe again. So I owe you 1 LMU. Hit me up later, and we shall sort that out. All right, over to you. What do you got for us this week, Cheese?
So I remember you said something about the Animoca and them. How do you say it?
Nobody can say it.
Animoca.
Yeah, Animoca. Yeah.
And I was like the first, like not really.
Maybe
fully...
we should backtrack. What is it? Why are we talking about this?
Well, you said, and Upland said that they just got an investment from them of $18 million.
Yes.
So I was like, all right, cool. Like it's like you just hear it, and without knowing much about it, you're like, oh, that's really cool. We need the money, blah blah blah. But then you start looking into it. I started reading into it in full detail, and I kept finding like really cool things, like they're the leader in brand and blockchain gaming, which is like what, and they're interested in us. Their NFT investment portfolio is huge.
Yep.
Like I was so surprised they had Alien Worlds, which has gotten a lot better. I don't hate them anymore, so that's good.
Just to pause you there, do you think that goes hand in hand? Like last time we spoke, you mentioned and you showed us some of the significant changes to the UI, the positive changes. Do you think that's probably a direct result of Animoca's involvement?
It has
is
to
that
be.
the kind of thing we can look forward to as far as Upland, do you think?
I hope so, because they turned something that was, sorry, Alien World, ghetto and sloppy and slow, and they made it really pretty, very beautiful. Like I was blown away. But they also have Axie, which is really big. They have Dapper. I always mispronounce things, and Dapper has CryptoKitties.
Yep.
And
they also have the one that I raised in the UDUT meeting was the Limpo project, which is a kind of a pure sports NFT platform. So
nice. Oh well, there you go for football. So
absolutely.
So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and we know that, to be fair, the UI within Upland is complete dog shit. So let's hope that some similar massive positive changes are on the way.
Yeah, that definitely needs help. And like I thought they were just giving them money, to be honest. Like I didn't think they were gonna give until I checked them out, and I kind of looked into their mission statement, which I wrote down, because it was so awesome. And it's basically my eyes to deliver digital property rights to the world's gamers and internet users, thereby creating a new asset class, play to earn economies, and more equitable digital framework, contributing to the build of the open metaverse. Like it's so cool. So like based on what Upland put out, this is going to help them scale faster, create more brand partnerships, which I'm hoping fast foods get in there. Me and my Burger Kings.
you've put a lot of time and effort and money into that kind of angle.
Oh
Yep.
yeah, and like
Well,
just like international, like you said, this place is from Hong Kong.
bingo. Now that has been speculation for ages and ages and ages, because way back in the day, Upland released it was kind of like a promo short, and it had Hong Kong within there. So there's always been speculation that Hong Kong will be the first international city. So
That'd
you
be
know,
awesome.
I think that's highly likely, or more likely than it was even before. Let's say. So yeah, the biggest thing for me that I'm excited about is, I think, and we've discussed this extensively in the UDUT meetings, is that Upland seems to be suffering from a lack of focus. They're kind of, I liken it almost to like my kindergarten teacher job. They're 4-year-olds just running around the room. They're playing with this, they're playing with that, but they're not sitting down and deeply engaging in anything. They've just got their fingers in all the things everywhere, making a mess over here, and then they run over there and make a mess, and then they trip over and hit their head there, and everyone's screaming at them. So,
And you're describing me.
so I'm hoping that this kind of Animoca deal will kind of not pressure, but kind of give them a bit of focus and direction, and maybe even like the support and the structure basically that they need to get their shit together, shall we say. So
Yeah, like for me, if Hong Kong is first, I would love someplace like South Korea to be next. I would love for like the new K-pop bands to get into this, because K-pop is extremely popular, right?
Yeah.
I like a few songs, but I'm mostly into the K-dramas. Those are awesome, by the way. Like they have,
Yeah.
I can.
the kimchi slap. I love that one.
I didn't see. Maybe we could like share different episodes after this, but I know there was one. Are You Human Too? And like, you know, my obsession with robots, that was awesome. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I haven't dove too deep into the Korean series, but I assume it's along the same lines as Japan. Like, I used to watch a lot of Japanese TV series, and the interesting thing about them is that if they have a show that's popular, it's normally only one season, 13 episodes. If it's like insanely popular, there may be a second one, but not usually. It's not like the kind of English American kind of system where they just keep pumping it out and grinding it out for all it's worth. You know, season 10, season 20. Over in Asia, they seem to be really focused on just, you know, short, sharp. Here it is, enjoy it, and then they move on and do something else. So is that similar with the Korean system?
I think so. They just have like a lot of new concept ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, I also watch some I don't know if it's called C dramas, like in China they have it was long. Oh my God, I'll get it by the end of this thing. But before we move on to the next topic, I just want to say that so much has happened in Upland. We need to get Icon back for another crossover show and talk through all of this. Like maybe like we did last time, just go through the animal.
Well, we've got a new roadmap to look through too. So the roadmap's been completely revamped. So that could be something interesting to work through. So yeah, we'll reach out.
Yeah.
Just before we skip ahead too far, and going back to the TV angle, like last week with Penguin, we were talking about different TV shows, and I believe you started watching the Dexter series.
Yes. I don't want to talk too much.
There can't be spoilers at this stage.
I don't want to talk too much about it. I've seen like maybe 4.
Cool.
And they're awesome. Like it kind of helps you relate in a little way to the guy, and like and it's fun to see how, like, I don't know, it's just kind of having you see somebody take something that is negative and kind of turn it into a positive.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's a real mind fuck in some parts. Like, I can't wait for you to get to the point where you find out the whole backstory. I'm super excited to see and hear your take on that. So that'll be cool. You just dropped, what did you just drop? Order of the Phoenix? Is that what you were searching for?
That's yes. Oh
Yeah.
my God. All right. So I was playing a game called Order of the Phoenix, and the game was based on this show, and I started watching the show, and it's like has the subtitles or whatever, and I right away I was just drawn into it. It was so beautiful, and it has to do with the different like how it was before with the dynasties and whatnot. It was just so cool. I love
I've
it.
actually, now that you say that, I've watched a couple of Korean series on Netflix that are the same thing, like the kind of dramatized history kind of situation. They're cool. Just going back to the Animoca deal and thinking about like future cities, like speculating that perhaps it, Hong Kong might be the first one. Now we have had Nashville just released, and a lot of people were kind of really put out, blown away by the prices. Like most of the properties in Nashville seem to be quite large and very expensive. What do you think the pricing is going to be like, say they released Hong Kong?
I'm gonna I'm gonna say I think the reason why Nashville was the way it was, and I still love you, Upland, but I think it was rushed. I think they kind of merged stuff together and they
Yeah, the
needed to get
neighborhood
it out
lines.
like as fast
Yeah,
as possible. Like, don't get me
yeah,
wrong, big is good because you got the dividends coming in and whatnot, and they did have some great dividend properties, but at the same time, it was one big reason why I wasn't that interested in it. Like, I just
yep,
kind of looked at stuff that I was thought was fun.
yeah.
I got a nice
Yeah,
little cult place.
yeah, for sure. I think for our international cities, especially if it's Hong Kong, I think when the days of going to a city and then, you know, buying dozens and dozens of speculative properties, I think they're going to be gone. I think if you're going to be going to, again, using Hong Kong as an example, if you go to Hong Kong, I think you're going to be carefully choosing one or two properties because the prices are going to be astronomical.
I'm gonna disagree with you. I'm
Mhm.
going to play devil's advocate again. And I'm going to say, so I bought, there were a lot of people that wanted in on Nashville but didn't want to go there.
Yeah,
And that's something you brought up before about international places. And I kind of played on that. And I
yeah,
bought a bunch of 2K UPX to 10K UPX properties in Nashville, and I flipped them right away. So the 10Ks, I sold a few of those for 29K, and
wow,
2Ks, I sold a few for 15K. And
wow, that's
it was,
awesome.
yeah, it was people who didn't want to go. It was the
Yeah.
cheapest they can get. And they just wanted to say they own a bit of Nashville. And I think it's going to be the same thing for Hong Kong. I think Hong
Mm.
Kong is going to be so much better. Um, uh, it's gonna be so much, give me the word, coordinated.
Yeah, more professional, and it's going to have to be because if they release Hong Kong, you obviously there would be a massive marketing push ahead of that, like in Asia. So, it's they're going to have all their ducks lined up. What I think is coming into play now too is like we have seen with, going back to Fresno, like as the player base expanded, Fresno sold out super quickly, and then they expanded to Clovis. Well, Clovis sold out completely in what was it, like a week, 2 weeks or something. And then we've had other cities open up that just sell out immediately. So what better way to help control that kind of supply and demand issue than to boost the prices way up? I think that's coming into play too.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I
Mm.
could see that. I just feel like Nashville was rushed out because they had to. They had to get these out before like the football thing ended,
Yeah,
and they were like backed against the wall. But we'll see. Hopefully,
yeah.
like they still have, affordable stuff, but who
Yeah.
knows?
Well, those neighborhood lines that they use, they don't make sense to anybody, do they? Because that's
No.
not representative of the in real life situation. It's kind of just one of the interns has drawn lines on the map.
I mean, that's a great excuse. Like the intern thing is gonna get old soon though. Like I
Right.
see them, I see it being used a lot, but there. I mean, I don't know. I don't
That's just kind
know.
of our funny way to kind of
Yeah,
give them a
it's
get out
true.
of jail free card.
That's true. All right. If it's a get out of jail free card, then I'll accept it. Yeah,
All right,
approved.
that's probably enough about Upland because I'm sure we're going to dive into all things Upland a bit deeper when our guest comes on. What else did you have to talk about? Didn't you have some tales of the crypto stuff or?
Yeah. So Tales from the Crypto. So all right. So I'm pretty active in their Discord, and they're talking about their new blockchain game called Crypto Dead's Necrotic Warfare. I'm very excited for this. They put out their first card that will give you, like, all of their cards will give you rads, which you would get on a drip per day, and of course that's going to be something you could switch out in Alcor, I'm sure. But they're putting out some that will only give you rads and not PP from the Wax Arena, and I'm like, there's a lot of questions I have to ask them. I haven't really seen them on, like, I see them online, but like I try to ask questions and it kind of gets jumbled a bit. We'll have to see, like, come on, don't mess with the cheese. Another thing was I was watching, yeah, I could be strict too. Like, it's not always about, positive. Got to be some negative sometimes. I was
Oh yeah, I know
watching,
all about that.
yeah. Fake brush, fake brush. I was watching Upland Action News, and they had Roman Punks on, and Roman Punks made a comment that, I was like, what? They said something about Tales of the Crypto looking into the ETH platform, and
Yep.
this was the first time I was hearing this, and I asked about it in Tales of the Crypto, and no, I didn't get an answer, so I kept asking about it and asking about it, and one of the mods there said no, and he's very helpful. I love the guy. I'm not going to name any names, but then um, I think I asked about it again, and finally Pulpish said maybe.
Cool. And
Not
speaking
cool.
of
Not
speak,
cool. It's not
well, I
cool,
mean,
Ben. It's not cool, Ben. Wait.
it's
Like,
it's cool that you started to get an explanation rather than you have to keep nattering away. That's
that
what I kind
wasn't
of
an
meant.
explanation to me.
Oh,
That
okay.
was that was let me keep her quiet and say one word
Mm,
answer,
yeah, fair
right?
enough.
So I didn't care for it, but we'll see. Once more gets out, maybe they'll start sharing more. Maybe they're just busy. I have no idea. We'll see. But
Nice. Now, speaking of Ethereum, you have some news.
oh, all right. So me and Lil, I'll put her into this as well because I love her. We've been thinking and talking in the background about getting on OpenSea, and we've been nervous about it. And she created an account, but something happened with it where she wasn't able. It wasn't fully processed, and she couldn't activate it. So I did some research. I watched a bunch of videos on, like, how to create OpenSea, and they had this Polygon um, blockchain. So if you do Polygon, you don't have to have any money in your wallet. You don't have to have any ETH in your wallet. Everything is free.
Nice.
You it's a little confusing because you have to put an ETH price on it. So I thought it wasn't letting me use the Polygon, but I watched another video. Videos are awesome. YouTube is great. You can find anything out if you just have enough patience. And I found out that, you have to put it as the Ether price, but it's still on Polygon blockchain. And I put up something I've been working on for a little bit, and it was buildings. So it was buildings, but like a very mosaic type kind of buildings. And then I didn't like it because it just kind of looked a little bit too neat. So I messed around with it. I did a little, like, pinching and waving in GIMP, and then I also added a bit of a ripple to make it seem like heat, like it was hot, like it was simmering, and I called it hot twisted pixel.
Nice.
I can, let me see if I do a quick share, and then let me see where.
So are you going to be building or creating specific things for OpenSea, or are you going to do some cross, will we likely to see the same kind of art on Wax and OpenSea, or are you going to keep those two worlds separate?
I'm thinking about keeping like I don't know. I have no idea. That's a question. That's a question you just asked me.
Nice.
You just asked me a question.
Yeah, I think it'll be good if you just keep building up your profile on both the platforms. Oh yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Trippy.
And it looks like I wasn't happy at it at first, and I crumpled it. And then I opened it up again and decided to work on it. So like that was kind of like the look I was going for, like a crumpled piece of paper that I didn't like. So I crumpled it, threw it away, and then I came back to it. And it is, how do I get out of this? Boop. It is on sale for 0.013, which is equivalent to, I think, $60.
That's pretty reasonable for
And it's one of
OpenSea.
one.
Yep. One of one. Wow, awesome.
Exactly.
Now, is that a style you're going to dig into further?
I have a lot of these actually, but I'm just not like that. I just kind of play around with, but I'm not very completely happy with. Just like this one, like I have like my time is like so stretched lately that I just kind of focus on the Whine and Cheese NFTs. That rhymes.
Speaking of which, you got the penguin one out, I saw.
Yes, the penguin one has been. I love the colors on that. It's very colorful. I'll give everybody a little preview. I keep going away from my screen.
Yeah,
Wait,
that came out really cool.
Oh, thank you. Oh, you make me feel like $1 million, Ben.
Nice. Can I borrow $1 million?
Well, I don't have it. You just make me feel like it.
No, but that's cool. It could be like your OpenSea account could almost be your waste paper basket for your wax projects. If you get Jack or something, you scrumple it up like that and put it up for sale on OpenSea.
Oh my God, I could never do that. That would make my heart hurt. Like I would lose, you know me. You know how paranoid and neurotic I am. Like you see how much detail this has. And then I actually showed him, and I had his head actually down more because to kind of create the penguin look with the no neck and the shoulders. But I sensed that he didn't care for that, so I lifted his head up and kind of tweaked it a bit, and he liked it so much better. So like that's basically how I am. I need it to be perfect for everyone, especially the person that I'm making it for. And like this one doesn't have much movement, just like the crystal ball here.
I think your ability to capture facial features is just remarkable. Like we've seen that with the bird one and everything else. It always blows me away when you send it through. And I know you've been accused before of using software to like take a picture and then pixelate it, but no, this is Cheese builds her NFTs pixel by pixel, literally.
Because I show you the works in progress, and if you look really close, like the face is like the pixels that I shrank down. So like everything is pixel. It's just different sizes of the pixel to fit into that one picture. Like, so.
Yeah, you can see on the penguins in the background, those pixels are much larger than the ones on
like his face
penguins,
and then his
forehead
outfit.
and that. It's definitely very super cool.
And actually, I can show you. I forgot who I sent it to.
Maybe you should explain the background imagery a bit better, because we just kind of spitball that
you gave me that idea. So you talk about that's like an iceberg there.
Yeah, so we know we interviewed Penguin, and if you go back to the Batman Penguin lore, well, Penguin's lair is the Iceberg Lounge nightclub. So that's why I suggested to Cheese make it kind of a bluey, nightclubby vibe sort of situation. So hence the disco ball and dancing penguins in the background.
Yeah.
Right. What do you got to show us? Then we better see if our guest is still there.
I know. I'm getting nervous. Like we're taking too long. I was going to show you a progress pic, but I could always put that up in. If you're not in online in, go to the online in. I have a channel there. We have a channel there, the Whine and Cheese. Come say hi to Ben and I. Come look at we have our videos up there. If you don't want to search, we have the NFTs, the pictures, blah, blah, blah. Hit me up if you need an invite. Hit me or Ben up or Frazzle. Yeah.
Well, maybe I can give you a homework project for the NFT you're going to be doing up for our guest today. Can you capture a series of screenshots as you work through from the kind of initial? I know you like to do kind of a basic facial outline that kind of sets your focus. Yeah, maybe you can get, I don't know, 10 or so. Get some progress shots, and we can showcase that in the next one.
All right, I could show I don't know if I have 10. All the progress shots are the ones that I send to you.
No, I mean for not the one you've already done, for today's guest when you're creating his.
Oh yeah, sure, that'll be cool. And then I know the challenge for everybody is to go to the online in and say hi on the Whine and Cheese show.
Well, there you go.
You guys, it's a great one.
There you go, sickos. You've already dropped it. You're going to have to listen carefully for this one. So you've already had your hint for the week embedded. So what was that again? Just run that through again.
So, all right, sickos, I'm stealing your line. Go to the online in Discord. If you need an invite, come see me or Ben. We'll send you an invite, and then find the Whine and Cheese channel and say hi. And that's all you need to do. And you'll get an NFT. If you want to say hi on the YouTube comment section as well, that's great, because we always like to see love there. Thank you all for doing that.
We'll post the link to the invite in the description of the video, and make sure you tag Cheese when you comment so that she can keep track of everything.
Yeah.
Cool. All righty, shall we see if our guest is around?
Yes, Mr. Uplando. Pokemon Discord.
Yeah, no, I'm here.
Hello.
Hey.
Aww.
Hello, sir.
You look nice and fresh faced.
Oh, good.
Me and Ben always look like messes.
You guys are fantastic. You guys are wonderful. You're looking great.
Now, do we need to take some deep breaths? I believe you had some issues this morning. You're all right?
Oh yeah. So that's just the ongoing. I suffer from headaches. Everybody knows it. Yeah, I do, and that's just what it was. And I hope that's the headache you're talking about, not the headache of Nashville and other things that were. But there are some other things too. Yeah, all together.
No, that's cool. Yeah, we've been looking forward to this one. Obviously you're a massive personality and player in the space. Cheese and I both know you pretty well on a personal sort of level. Like, I think both of us have had in-depth hour-long conversations, in Zoom that never gets published or anything like that. So, no, it's really cool.
No, it is. Yeah, mental therapy sessions for us that play the game of Upland.
For sure.
Need it. So
also, some Cards Against Humanity sessions.
That's right. Early on,
where you can see a different side of Uplando.
Yeah, that's the thing. I want to talk a little bit about that today because some of that plays into one of my programs that I have inside of Upland, and that's distinguishing, as we do in this metaverse. Everyone has a pseudonym. When you come into the world of these metaverses, you forgo your in real life name and you take on that pseudonym and that profile. That's the fun of it. That's part of the community. That's part of the game aspect of this, in my opinion. And you have this kind of first line of of anonymity unless you break it like we all are and talk on open channels all the time and bring ourselves out. Because early on, I felt like that was very much like it was a hooch parlor. It was a club where you go to, a speakeasy, and you kind of sat around and you didn't know, you had to have a special knock to get in. You know, that's what it felt like.
For sure. Now, we know you as Uplando, but within the Upland game, you're KCBC. Can you talk to that a bit?
Yeah, I can. And I want to do one thing first. I want to acknowledge how incredible that piece of artwork was that Morecheeese had done, that last penguin piece of art. The progression that I've watched Morecheeese artwork is absolutely stunning. It's great work. And I dig it. I just wanted to say that so I didn't forget it. And I just, kudos. I cannot wait to see what you're going to do and what we progress it.
Wow. Careful what you wish for.
Yeah, careful. Thank you for that.
I can imagine there's some things that would die. I'm sure that I'll get some very interesting, Morecheeese will say, what if we can do this? She has a very convincing way of talking.
Well,
I just had an idea too.
I couldn't convince you of the first one I wanted to do. You remember that?
I kind of do. I think I may have put it back in my mind. I shoved it back. I was like, no, I don't think so. I can't remember.
Here, Ben and I were gonna like make it rain spark on you while you were like dancing.
Yeah, I don't think that.
Oh no, you were gonna rain it on us. Yeah, you were gonna rain it on us because you were putting into our properties at the time for the spark train. So you were gonna make it rain on us, and we were there on stage with like a stripper pole or something.
Yes, exactly what I need for the proliferation of my squeaky clean demeanor on Upland. Yes. Wow. Thanks, Morecheeese, so much for that.
I'm squeaky clean, but look, I'm talking about stripper poles.
Yes, we'll work on it. So KCBC, to answer your question, Ben, as many people, when I started this game, I found this game through Crypto Kitties, and that's how I first got tagged into it, or even came across it. And then I bookmarked it, and I said, you know what, I'm going to come back to this. And a year later, I got back to it, and I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to do this. And it had been around the time where we had some lockdown and things of that nature. So I think November, as Ben said, 25th may have been my Uplander status had gotten put into the system. I originally signed up as the profile Uplando. That was the first profile. And with that email address, I could never get it to confirm, no matter what I did. And I think I told you, Ben, it was the 14th, because I think that's when I started to try and get that email address confirmed with Uplando. Never could. And I started getting FOMO because we were going into New York, and San Francisco was out, and I was getting nervous. I was, and so I thought, hey, you know what? I'll just create this new account, KCBC, which is Kansas City Bitcoin Cryptocurrency. It's a group that I'm the president of that I run with other members here in Kansas City, Missouri. And I thought, let's see if I can get that email to go through, and I'll play as KCBC, and then I'll migrate everything over to Uplando. That's what I'll do. So I did. It got the email confirmed right away. I went in, and then I started FOMOing into San Francisco, because immediately I could see how the progression of these collections were going. And I started buying inaugurals right away. I could see the price of those collections starting to, even at that point, start to rise. And I thought, this is the only time I'm going to be able to get into those. So,
and what were they at that point? Were we in, 100, 200,000 OPEX?
Yeah, I think the most, I think I spent 168,000. I may have spent 200,000 UPEX was my most expensive in those inaugurals. One of those was, I think it was on Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco, was a bathroom. It was the only one that was left on the secondary market. So the collection is actually a picture of the street view is a restroom. So that was in my collection. But yeah, that was about the price range.
And are you still holding those?
I still hold them. I have not released.
Yeah. What's the floor now? I think they're well over $1 million, aren't
I think they are. They're around that 1,000, million UPX area is what they are.
That's almost like your superannuation plan.
Yeah, yeah. No, it is. I missed out on. I had an opportunity for the Crooked Lombards, but they were already at that time well up in that price range. I'd like to go back, and we'll see some analytical data when we get a UPX World or UPX Land up and running to see what those price points were back then. But at the time, I just couldn't bring myself to purchase the Crooked Lombards on the secondary market. I wish I had, but.
Oh, hindsight's a bitch. I mean, like, I know when I sold San Francisco Financial District properties at a loss to take, other opportunities, because it was really hard to find a buyer for properties over $1 million. It was, very, very difficult. But nowadays, you'd sell that in a heartbeat. So it's interesting.
I have a funny thing to say before you keep going. The KCBC, when I first saw you, I looked it up, and at first I thought you were like just a really religious person. Because the first thing that comes up is like Kenneth Copeland Bible College. And it's like a KCBC is like a powerful Christian talk radio. And I was like, all right, maybe this guy is really, and I got to slow down on my religious jokes around him.
Morecheeese,
I asked you and you told me.
That is my plan today, is to bring the book
Praise the Lord.
into the light, and I want to bring all of you with me.
I see it.
Today. It's going to be just a minimal donation, not only of your time, but of your to come into the Upland Church.
You're good with those accents. I love it.
Okay, now, I had a look through our DM history, and kind of we were kicking back. There's a couple of main points in our personal relationship that kind of stand out. Well, one of the first ones is I look back, and I think it was 18th of December, so just a couple of weeks after you joined officially. You reached out, you were looking for a museum and some financial districts in Manhattan. I guess at that stage, the financial district must have sold out, and I pretty much blew you off because it was still in vanilla, and I didn't want to sell anything until, anything had been confirmed.
Yeah, Ben had a cigar. He said, "Hey, look, kid, I've been around here for a while. I want to come back when you're a little bit more established and whatnot. I'll talk to you." He put me back in the minnow pool, is what he did. Yeah.
Yeah, I seem to have a habit of doing that when I look back in these DMs. So it's a bit of a worry.
It's okay. I love it because part of the reason that I enjoy the personalities so much is because of that. It's just so much fun to run up against different people from all over the world, and they do things a bit differently down under. They do, don't they?
Nice. Now, the next point, there was quite a gap. There was quite a gap in, like, we didn't continue our conversations after that until the whole Woodward Park explosion in the building. Do you want to speak to that as well? Because you were pretty significant in, at least in the back end, when you sorted out the NFT and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think that what I was trying to do is, in first starting in the game, was number one, understand it and learning. Everybody has the same path. I believe most people have the same path. They find the game, they register, they get some UPX, they get to choose a cool little avatar, a block explorer, and then all of a sudden you're trying to figure out what all this is and how to maneuver around in the world and how to communicate with people. And then you find Discord and you hop on there and you go from there. So what Fresno obviously had been one of those releases that I had gotten into. I think it was the first city that I started in was Fresno, I'm pretty sure. And I started buying up properties there and filling out the collections and then on to San Francisco. But when Woodward Park, let me go one step back. When they started doing the SPUD, placement for Spark building events, the first real building event that they had was in San Francisco, and it was Nichiren, it was Recurrier, and it was Nice to Meet You. Yep. And those three had Dogpatch, Panhandle, and Merced Manor. Those were the three. And it was very interesting. So you would build the buildings, and they had a perimeter, and then you would get points, and you had people that owned property building on these areas. And then you could put up cell towers, which were a negative to the buildings, right? So that's what we were doing. And I was starting to then reach out to other players that I had previously met and talked to. Of course, everybody says it. T. Davis specifically, and TM were the first two, and then Wall Street Satoshi a little bit later. But getting into that progress of building and teamwork really it just was something that pulled me in, and I was really polarized too. So when Woodward Park came around for the sandbox finale build, it gave me an opportunity because I had some real, good holdings in Woodward Park. Somebody else, and I'd love to see, there's still a Discord channel there. We could go back and see who started that. I'd love to credit that person who started the Woodward Park Discord channel to start grassroots building. So many new players had started. And so you didn't have these smaller areas. See, all the OGs thought they were going to get these smaller areas pumped and everybody was going to build, but that's not what happened. All the new players said, we're going to do this. And I got behind that and championed it. And I just said, hey, I didn't want to ruffle feathers, but I'm going to ruffle some feathers. Woodward Park for the win. Everybody start building. And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to do some NFTs to kind of incentivize people to get in there and build. And that's when Jay Whedon and I did the Woodward Park. It's a series of 6 NFTs from common to the mythic, I believe, or legendary is what it was. And we incentivized people. If you build there and you register for this NFT, we will give that to you.
Yeah,
so
I think I ended up with a couple of them. And we've seen history repeat with the Portage Park crew come online. And that's kind of followed a similar kind of plan where, they're the newbies to the scene. It's a community groundswell, and they've blown everybody away and taken out some of that last Halloween competition. So it's exactly what it was. It'll be interesting to see how those progresses. Not a lot of people talk about Fresno and Clovis. Many people don't even know where Clovis, that it's even actually there. But yeah.
Now you said something that I want to ask a question about, because I wasn't around for the Spud, and you said something about cell towers adding a negative effect.
Yeah. So go ahead.
What was that about?
So when you built in these different areas, each building had an actual point value that would add on to the overall score for your neighborhood to win. And what they did was they allowed you to build cell towers in the opposing teams' neighborhoods. As long as you owned a property there, then that cell tower had a diameter that would affect the property value scores that we're building. So if I put a cell tower next to two townhomes or whatever, it would negate those points.
Wow.
And so, yeah, and
like war tactics.
Like war tactics.
I love that. I love that. No more.
And it was originally it was advertised as you were going to build trailers, like trailer park properties, but there was a lot of pushback in the community, like maybe that's not a good look, so they changed it to cell towers.
Yeah, it was cell.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But I think started Project Chernobyl and just said, we're coming for X. And then that plan backfired on them, and somebody, I think Panhandle won it because they were hitting Manor heavy, and then Dogpatch lost out and Panhandle won it, I think is who did in the end.
And Nitram brings it up every time that we talk about it. He always mentions that I was building cell towers everywhere, but in fact, like I correct him every time. I had nothing to do with cell towers at that point. UDU wasn't a concept, although speaking to what you're talking about, where that was the kind of early stages of neighborhood building and collaboration, that was kind of one of the foundationary seeds for what eventuated to the UDU. But back in those days, I was just a pure lone wolf. I had properties in all of those hoods. I was making bank on all the spite. Now, it started off all fun and games, but it did get a bit spiteful towards the end. And I know Nitram personally, he spent like near $1 million at UpX buying properties of mine in, I don't know whether it was Panhandle or Merced Manor, just to demolish or just to put a cell tower up. And so it did get a little bit ugly towards the end there, didn't it?
Oh, it did. I mean, absolutely. It started. And what was interesting is that if you look back at the Upland Action News, you had all 3 players on there. It was one of the first times where Nisha, Nice to Meet You, and Recurrier were all on there. And you know what a love affair that is between Recurrier and Nish. That's their.
I'm not going to say anything bad about Nish because he actually watches the show and he loves the show. And
no, we're both fans.
where have you been? You haven't been commenting on the shows. Come back, like and
Well, he's in New
comment.
York at the moment, isn't he?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah.
That's right, Uplando.
Yeah,
Do
he
you
is.
have any eyes on the ground there?
Yeah, he was sending us some images, pictures, and I think everybody's internal interactions with Nichiren, they run the entire scale, right? You go through the entirety of it all, where you have this, I don't know, he seems like this player, very anonymous. I've never seen the guy. I've never seen his outward appearance. I have known of Nish, and I have worked with him on the Hero Is Drawn comic book tour. We presented and did that tour together, and just having some back and forth with him. And I've muted Nietzsche. I've kicked Nietzsche from Discord, but I like the guy, and I just have this affinity for him for how long he's been in the game, and he speaks a lot of truth, but he speaks it with claws a lot of times. It's very.
Everybody has their own truth, and that's what people have to understand. There's different perspectives. So if I'm looking at the number 6, and you're standing in front of me, you're going to see the number 9. Who's right? Who's wrong? We're both right. It's just perspective.
Yes,
so
it is.
I had my niche. I think we all have our own niche experiences, and mine was on the party bus. And I never met the guy. I didn't know the guy, and we were jumping from server to server, and we were like, oh, we're going to the Udo station next, and oh my god. Oh, fuck Udo, fuck bad, fuck this, I'm gonna start trouble. And I'm like, no, you're not. And that was my first experience with him. And I at the time I didn't know if he was joking or not, but I didn't want to take any chances. So I kind of took Udo off the map for party bus locations, and just whatever. But then I see him conversating in the cafe and whatnot, and sometimes I go in there and I just like to hear the voices. It's a nice distraction. I went in there a couple of nights ago, and I know Dr. Tid and TM were talking, and I like. There's times I don't want to participate, but I just want to hear people talking, and it's always nice that there's at least somebody in there talking. So I appreciate that. But yeah, it's all about perspective.
And now it's come full circle. He's trying to poach the cheese.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's always trying to poach it.
I don't think he remembers me.
No, but yeah, we've got into it a couple of times. Me and Mitch. I think there's definitely an aspect of love-hate relationship there. I always picture him in a gimp mask with a dog collar. That's how I see him.
I don't know, because you just, again, this is how you try to, and you know what, Morecheeese, your explanation of how you met with Nietzsche is probably, I think, everybody's first experience. It's this very prickly, kind of, hey, F this, F that. And then you get to know him, and he's kind of a charmer, you know what I mean? Ultimately, at his core. So, but yeah, I don't know. But
anyway, this ain't the Nichiren show; it's the Uplando show. So screw that guy.
Oh my god! But like and subscribe, Niche, when you get back. All right, moving on.
Yeah. So, one of the next main points that kicked in, like I said, that you reached out in DM about the financial district in Manhattan, and then there was some chat about Woodward Park. The next main part that was in our history was I reached out to you because I'd seen an interview that you'd done with Venom at that stage. At that stage, I believe that the UDU had either just kicked off or was just in the process of kicking off. And you did a really great interview with him, and then we followed it up as a 3-pack a bit later on. Yeah,
those initial interactions with Venom was, I had seen, I can't remember how he had first came onto the scene that I started to recognize it, but we got introduced through something of that nature. And also I had given him an NFT. I think we had I had given him a Woodward Park. He said he was reaching out. He had seen some of the stuff that I had done in terms of some of the interviews that I had done on YouTube, creating content, things of that nature. And that's how we got paired together. And then, like I said, a swap of NFTs. And then we progressed on. He had said, I'm going to make a couple big moves is where it had come down to. And then we had done an interview together. I think it was the first interview. He had bought a monument. He went in and bought a big property. I can't remember what the actual buy was on that.
Yeah, it wasn't Rockefeller. I think it was the one before.
It was
whatever that one was.
Was it
Chrysler Center or something, maybe?
It might have been.
Yeah.
Oh, it could have been in actual. He's got one in New York. We're right beside each other. It's right by the train station. That could be the Chrysler. I said, hey, I want to interview you and let's go for it and let's see if it works. And so we just did that interview, followed it up with the second one. And then, I think as we started getting into, this was post Brooklyn. And so he went in on that last Dumbo purchase, and that's kind of what ballooned it from there.
Yeah. And then from there, that was kind of your entry into the UDU team official.
Yeah, that's how you guys, it had been DJ and Venom, and I don't know if that was with you, Ben, that they started to do the blue trail, making a pile of blue or a trail of blue, and they started really championing, let's get San Francisco minted, let's get some more cities opening. And to their credit, that's what they did. They minted out San Francisco and got it done. Yeah,
that was definitely a core focus of the early UDU kind of, we call it version 1, the kind of high typhoon expansion era, where that was kind of a combination of factors. And I'm sure we'll speak to this a bit later with the Upland Better Business situation. Now, I had 5 million UpX, in the bank, in my account, ready to go for that. And it got to the point where the team said, look, this ain't going to be happening anytime soon. So there's no obligation, because originally we were going to have to put down a 20% deposit for outdoor decor shops. That didn't eventuate, and they basically said you don't have to hold on to that. We'll get to it at some later point. So I had 5 million UpX there, just burning a hole in my pocket. So that was kind of the backbone for me as far as the trail of blue. And yeah, we went into, we cleaned out, DJ and I and a few others, we cleaned out Midtown Terrace, and Venom come on the scene, and we cleaned out Balboa Terrace. And then it was just one after the other. It was like every day after work, we were just cleaning out another neighborhood. And then it was out of Sunset. And then, yeah, it was definitely a very kind of hypey, expansionist kind of situation, which was fun at the time. And there was a lot of buzz, but there was also a lot of negative kind of blowback that came with that. Did you want to speak to that as well?
Yeah, that's where I actually, as DJ Shorts had come onto the scene, and we were watching the leaderboard, and that's one other thing I want to speak about as we go into this, because Outer Sunset was really where I started to take hold of the UDU and understand what Mountain Terrace was and all these types of things. And it goes back to again, Ben, the beta business. But having that leaderboard on UPX World was one of those things where you could see where you were in the standings of overall net worth and UPX. And I knew at that moment that as I was chasing people who I could see floating around their avatars and had aspired to be in that top tier on that leaderboard, had certainly was some flex, but also just was to be recognized as a player that was in this game, to be into it and be invited into more of these, what was otherwise at that time, it's just OG closed circles. You want to get to know players and understand, because you want to utilize everything that they know and put that to use for yourself. And that was the whole structure of it. So as I'm chasing, Atomic Pop and Green Turtle, Thank Me Later, and all these other players that seem so far out of reach, and BEN68 and all these people, every time I would add 2 million UPX, they would add 4. And I just, there was no, it's like, I breached the top 20 one time, and I'm like, okay, that's probably the best I'm ever going to make it. That's probably the best I'm ever going to get. And I've kind of landed in my zone. But yes, that took me into, Balboa Terrace and watching what you guys are doing with the UDU. I knew of you. I knew what was going on. I was slow to get into the UDU because of the cult of Ben and not understanding if I really wanted to get into that and go forward with that because
And Cheese cracking up.
yes,
Love that.
I don't know if you coined,
I love
you
it.
coined that phrase Morecheese, but I love it.
I think it was Nichiren, I think. Yeah.
Victor may have given
Yeah.
you that. Sounds like a niche movement. I just thought that it was interesting. There were this community projects, events, and tools was not filled with the advertisements for groups that you see it is today.
Yep.
That wasn't there. And when
It was all underground.
that's right. And when you get on Discord and you have your player name and then the name behind it, that could have been your WAM address, your WAX address, whatever. There was no call to arms with this, unifying UDU behind it. And then all of a sudden, more and more players started to show up with UDU behind their name. And the general chat started to explode with this, player monopolization and only the big OGs, and they're going to bring this game down and they're going to own everything. And the negativity, but there was other people saying, no, this is not the path that we're taking. You have to understand that. Come join us. And this, I had, and I'm saying us, Ben, you were saying that. Come join us. We have open meetings. They're out there. You can join at any time. We have them this week and so forth and so on. And I thought that was a good way to diffuse people. And it did. Finsky being one of the, main people that were probably holding up the red flag sign and then converting over into and understanding what it was all about. So I'm a proud member of the UDU, just to say.
Yeah, it was definitely, back in those days, there was a lot of old school kind of collabs, but yeah, they were all kind of behind the scenes, underground, and yeah, we kind of exploded on the scene. And, I've spoken about this in previous team meetings and that sort of thing. It is funny to reflect back on that stage. Looking at it from an outside perspective, you can totally get that it just seems so cultish. And it was, to truth be told. So,
And
but,
bro-ish.
yeah, we've moved right away from that at this point. So yeah, it's all cool in the history of things. So
Yeah, it is. It's the history of how we all came to know each other. And again, I continually talk about how the progression in life is very interesting. You have those who you grow up with, you spend some formative years with, you progress on into the working element part of your life and the progression of it. And then you have people that are mentors that you have or peers that you have that are pivotal in the things that you actually start to like or that you get exposed to that you never, could be music, could be art, could be anything. And then that really kind of etches into your entirety of the span of your lifetime. Those acquaintances can sometimes remain acquaintances, but they can grow into friendships, business, and beyond. And I think that's those stages that you have. It's these levels of how you interact with people, and you continue to find people that are different from you but that have like-minded interests, that way. Yeah,
we're almost a team of survivors at this point.
That's true. That's exactly right. It's a very good way to put it. Look, this whole Discord, we have seen we are in a whole second phase of Discord where most of the OG players that I would see that would post on a daily basis and would be on there don't do that anymore. We found that what we found is their progression in this started from player and now actually have jobs. Their work is non-fungible token, NFT projects, other types of tokenization, gamification, and just even being personalities. I mean, T. Davis is a perfect example with the NFTgamer.tv. I mean,
yeah.
And
Left House as well. Yeah. Speaking of going back to that, the top 20 in the UpX World stats and that, it was, I used to enjoy in the UpX podcast every week they'd go through the stats and who's jumped here and who's jumped there. They've kind of lost that from the chat at the moment, but hopefully that'll come back online once we get UpX World back on. But we did see not that long ago where we had a bunch of what we call new money players come in and just blow everybody right out the water.
Yeah, that was, and T. Davis was the one who did that UpX part. He would come in and give us the marketplace analysis, and I loved it because he would say, Hey guys, yeah, just got off the plane from New York. I just got back, and when I first, he was talking about traveling, and I was like, what is he talking about? Like I didn't, it didn't, he was putting a very fun element in it. And I really enjoyed that from him. And yes, he would. The first time that I ever got introduced or publicly mentioned as a player was from T Davis. He's like, yeah, he messaged me, he DM'd me, he said, hey, I'm going to make mention of you in the podcast. And so you should check it out. I'm like, uh-oh. And yeah, what he said was, he goes, yeah, this player Casey BC's and he's in the 20 some odd position, climbed to 17 this week, and he did it all on secondary properties.
That's
he never,
right, yeah.
I had never minted a property. I think we can go back. Don't hold me this, but until I hit director, all of my purchases were secondary purchases. I hadn't minted a property in the game to that point. And to defend myself, because Thank Me Later and Too Stupid were like, well, hey, tell him I've got 10 properties over and there. And, sure. The reason part of that was I didn't know how to mint. I didn't understand the concept. And the other part of that was that I was trying to catch up on collections. So I was seeking out collection grabbing and having to do that over secondary market. You don't find a painted lady out there that you can mint. So in San Francisco, but yeah, I missed that part of it too. That's how I got into it. And then what was your question after that, Ben? I'm so sorry.
No, I don't remember either, but yeah, it's kind of, you're not the only one that's fallen into that trap. And we've seen that with the, I won't name names, but the two biggest new money players that we're kind of referring to have done the exact same thing, where they've come in with massive wallets and just gone absolutely bananas on the secondary market. And it always gets me scratching my head. And I'm thinking, gosh, if you guys had to put that money into minting, your future flippable, ability would be so much larger, and your dividends would be so much larger. But it's a completely different play style. They seem to be going for those collection areas and that sort of thing. So there's many ways to play the game.
Yeah, that's what it was. You're talking about the new money that came into this, which is an Envenom, a DJ Shorts, an Octavius, Sotheby's, all these players that had came in and had all that.
Yeah, Buster.
We're consolidating we're grabbing up the collections because that's what they saw to be the most value. And you know what, Wall Street Satoshi and I used to talk about this. I mean, I would be on with him on Discord as we started to vet each other out a little bit during this period of time as we were growing into this. And right before Beta Business and getting to know him prior to that, is that we were looking at this and saying, there's going to be, this game hasn't seen whales yet. And this game hasn't seen whales yet. I just want to make that clear. 100%. This 175K, 500K in, I suspected we'd probably see the first $1 billion UPX player before the end of this year, but with Nashville probably being the last city, we probably won't see that. 2022, you'll definitely see it. But those players went for the gems. They went for the highest value properties and bought them now as speculation. And that reinvigorated me into Upland, because I was worried also about the secondary market. They're not going to let those properties go for anything less than what they bought them for. So those values are going to stick. That means that my properties have much more value, and that going forward, that I have more confidence in Upland and what they're doing in terms of invigorating the secondary market and bringing on new players with legits and things of that nature. But yeah.
I think Greektown in Chicago is a prime example of that, where Greektown is a rare collection and there's only very limited properties. And now all those property owners have got together and said, look, let's not put any of these for sale, and let's list them at a certain astronomical price. So, yeah.
Yeah, and those players are also doing something called a temp swap, and that's such a controversial subject on temp swapping. I don't want to get too deep into it. It's something that I did once in my entirety as a player. You can make 2 million UPX plus right now if you swapped everything in all collections, but it's a long, grind, and it can be stressful, and it's something that I feel will be phased out in the game. But again, that's why a lot of those players went in and grabbed those collections, because there's now a secondary market. You don't have to sell those properties. You can swap them between other players and get the bonus UPX from those. it's smart, it's very clever, but sometimes it just feels a little bit like, I don't know if that's just sour grapes because I didn't think of it, or I just, whatever.
I don't know if you know the history
I'm
of.
going to jump in because
Sorry,
I
Chris.
need,
Yeah.
it's hard for me to, I feel like Upland can kind of fix that right away by putting in a fee. So like, let's say if you're doing a temporary swap, they can have an option for that separately. And for every temporary swap, they get about like 5% of the UPX being earned.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. What I think is the problematic part of what Upland does is they're reactionary versus action.
Solution oriented.
Yeah, so they've got an influx of capital. They're 18 million flush. They've got a lot of work to do on 2022 and getting through 2021. But to your point, yeah, there's something
like don't say we can't do that. Say, all right, you want to do that? Let's come to a compromise. Let's come together and think of something that will benefit us both. Because I want Upland to be benefit. I wouldn't mind doing swaps where they took 5% if I'm getting, UPX for the collection.
Yeah, I'm not for sure where to go on that. I'm not going to go too deep into the collections, the property swapping. It's just not my thing. But for anybody who doesn't has a reputation of it, that's what Octavius and Angry Ferret do. They establish those communities that rate you and give you a score. And I think that going forward, there are going to be third-party utilities and tools that leverage that as part of their tool set to have a crediting system to who to swap with, because you can lose your property. You can lose it. There is a risk.
Well, yeah, I only do it with people in the UDU. Yeah,
and that's the best, and then again, nothing's 100%. So you never know. You never know.
We always talk about the hit by the bus factor.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And I don't know if you know the history, but I was pretty much the pioneer of the 50-50, that whole thing. That was way back when it might have been just after, because there'd always been swapping happening, but it was kind of, nobody knew if it was legal or illegal. So it was kind of very undergroundish. But when the team came out and said, no, it's perfectly okay, and actually they said that it was one of the core community building foundations that they envisioned, which I personally think is a load of bullshit, and they just allow it because they can't stop it. But yeah, I really kicked off then, and like I used to have 1 day off a week from work, and I would sit there for 3-4 hours running 50-50 swaps. And I got a lot of heat in the community at the stage saying I was devaluing all the collections and this, that, and the other. And I was morally bankrupt and all this sort of shit. But I found players like Nubex, Blue Bear, there's a whole bunch of players within the UDU that's how our relationship was kind of forged and strengthened. And it was funny to see that all of the blowback that I was getting, if you looked into the blockchain history, those fucking players are doing it too.
Ben, you've been the boy. Sorry, Morecheeese.
Yeah.
No, this is like people get in trouble for being transparent. Like when you said that when UDU was easing tensions by becoming transparent, I feel it was the opposite. I wanted to say something. I feel that it just put us more in the spotlight, and the other teams that were doing exactly the same thing as UDU with the coming together and building on property were more hush hush about it, so they didn't get any fire. So it's like
raising floors and that sort of thing.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah, you're always saying that to me.
I always say that. That's my thing.
Yeah, I mean, and you're talking about Ben things that, and credit where credit is due. A lot of the coined terms, in my opinion, such as Node and Spark Train, and now learning about the 50-50 swap, which I didn't know about that, are things that you have done and which gravitated me towards where you were going as a player. And having had both of us gone through the same process for the beta business is where things really kicked off and really started to push things forward. That excitement level was peak, I think, is right after we found out who were beta business, who got awarded licenses. That was one of those things that separated, those out who had put so much effort into applying for that. And the build up to that was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot of misconceptions around. Like I know the Upland show, they released a video, I think it was yesterday or something, and they were talking about you actually and your Block Explorer shop and how, you know, I think Loyal mentioned that you paid $6,000 for your license. I'm like, where the fuck did you get that figure from? So we're constantly recorrecting that sort of stuff. And just to clarify, there's been no payments whatsoever. All there was a two-stage application process. There was a kind of a vague outline. And then if you were selected, you went to the next stage, and that was a bit more of a detailed plan. And then from that, you know, what was there, 20 of us, 10 Block Explorer shop, 10 Outdoor Decor, were awarded our licenses, which nobody's had anything, you know, it's all for naught at this point.
Yeah, to be really clear on that, and Ben knows this just as much as anybody else, when that application process came up, that wasn't the first application that you could participate in. It was Fiat Out was the first beta application process, and you could apply for Fiat Out. Everybody that's in the game now know that there even wasn't a way to get your money. There was no out. You were putting your money in with the hopes that you were going to be able to get that money out. At that point, it was just speculation and hope with a large amount of risk. If you hadn't gotten Fiat, it was at the time was beta Fiat Out. So there, when you went on to, and I was trying to figure it out when I was roaming around the app and it said web available only, that meant that there had been a core amount of players that had been approved for Fiat Out to be able to have and put their properties up for USD rather than UPX and sell those properties for US dollars. And I would go back around with, again, Wall Street Satoshi's view and sit there and go, man, I'm not sure about this. I'm not going to go in on another city without getting Fiat Out. And when I was able to apply for it and was approved for it, then I got a little bit of breathing room. And then when the beta application point, when that came around and we were able to apply and they had let us know, that was the point where they had said, when you apply, and I think it was the second go around, you must have at that point for Block Explorer stores, a million UPX, which is $1,000 USD, or if you're Decor, it's 5,000 or 5 million UPX and 5,000 USD. We had to hold that in our accounts. So we all did that, everybody that applied. And then when you were let known that you were approved for that, it's 10 Decor, 10 Block Explorer. Those are the players that got those. They opened a channel. We were able to discuss in that channel. We had high hopes, but time kept passing and passing and passing. And one day they said, this fee that you're holding, the million UPX and 5 million UPX, will no longer be required. And so it has been that way since that day. It is not that we will not have a license fee to pay after, that we're still not going to have to pay a yearly license fee and that we're getting away with something. We just haven't had to do that yet. We did it at first. We didn't put it into the community pool. So we will still probably have to come up with that when it comes time.
And we don't know any information. There's a lot of misconception there that, you know, that's kind of some secret society getting ready to make all this money. We know nothing, basically. All we know is that Block Explorers are sometime soon, and they're going to be ahead of Outdoor Decor. That is basically the entirety of what we know. We don't know any specifics. We don't know any monetization strategies. For Outdoor Decor, we don't know even any specifications or what the pipeline is going to be like. We know nothing, basically.
It's been, otherwise that channel has turned into a memification of itself. And basically what it is, they literally took, you know, memes away from, you know, the actual community and literally beta business that, and I don't mean to be, you know, facetious about it, but I'm just telling it like it is. Somebody will say, hey, crickets, you know, and there's no information. Now, what we understand from E10 that had been in the cafe when we invited him in, he has then said they had hired somebody in that role, that division that is going to take over business and explain to us all what that is after they got the Spirit Halloween NFT legits out, that Block Explorer stores would be first and it would be before the end of the year. I'm still not having any communication on that. And the first information that we got was what everybody got. This Halloween decorating contest, 168 by 168 pixels SVG. That's what you got. That's the baseline, and that's otherwise what we know Block Explorers to be.
No, we knew that. We knew that from Halloween last year because it was the exact same process. So, you know, it's been I'll be polite and say it's been frustrating.
It has been a bit frustrating. Yeah, we had high hopes. We all started, and that's Ben was the first, because we were all hush hush. Nobody was going to share their application with each other. And then slowly we started going, hey, what did you do to get your license? What did you do to get your license? And that slowly got disseminated out and traded out. And we started to look at what the applications were that had won these business licenses. Nish even dropped his in the Upland Cafe chat channel at once. But ultimately, we are awaiting to be able to do that. And Ben, when you had started developing your iconography, your branding guideline, what you were doing, how you were going to do it, you just said, enough, I'm putting my foot on the pedal. I'm going forward. Decor will catch up with me, is what you've done.
Pretty much, yeah. But it's frustrating, and like we were keen to go, like had artists lined up and all that sort of stuff. I'm like pleading, just give us the specs. I can work. If it doesn't come online for 12 months, I'll use 12 months to build up a hella portfolio of art and NFTs and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's going back to crickets. So
yeah, we don't even know what we're using to build these things yet. So we could have all for naught. If you build it in the wrong format or you don't do it correctly, you could be wasting all of that time and effort.
Maybe that's a good segue into the recent Animoca news. Like Cheese and I talked about it a bit before we kicked off with you, but it'd be cool to get your perspective. How do you think this new 18 mil funding, which is probably, I believe that's probably just the tip of the iceberg as far as the funding and support that's going to come in, how do you think that's going to change the core structure of, the game itself and how the teams run and all that sort of thing?
Some things, be careful what you wish for, because I do believe that the influx of capital is going to raise support for the divisions that are currently 1 and 2 people led divisions, or a division person and an intern, into fully built out or another level of built out divisions inside of Upland. And everything that they've had on the dream board is now going to start to become a reality, in that they can fund those, but they've got to support the roadmap. And you've got to actually meet those milestones in the roadmap as you go along. And they have got to start being more wins than, what it reminds me of. And again, here, I'm not being derogatory. I'm just trying to, from a perspective of being a year in the game, it seems like they are an incredible athlete that runs hurdles, and Upland is at the starter gate. And at first, when they, doing some of the city releases, they didn't even get to the starting gate. They slipped and fell on their face, but
perfect analogy.
They did get back up. And then the next race, they cleared a couple of hurdles, and then they tripped and fell. And
I think you're being generous there. I think they tripped right on the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Yeah. And then sprained their ankle.
Lost a compound fracture, but no, that's not going to stop them. You know what I mean? They're out there in a walker, and they're with curdles trying to jump, or these crutches trying to jump hurdles. And it just seems like an almost vaudevillian or a comic-esque type of, approach at this, because, some of the, it's great to pick out of the bag of excuses and go, throw that one, let that stick. Yeah. You guys just talking about this last one where the intern had drawn the the irony is they just released a flash challenge where you literally drew it's like they were 14 the future. This flash challenge was prior to the actual release of Nashville, and you could just hand draw with a crayon your building structures, and that's what the outline of the cities were. They were somebody just went in there and somebody drew on the map, and they were like, looks good, let's do it. So that's how
I think that's a perfect analogy, the hurdles, and we're all on the sidelines. Woo, come on, you can do it. Yeah. But we're definitely at that, if you don't laugh about it, you'll cry kind of tipping point.
You don't think Animoca is going to put some of that funding towards, building up their employees, like getting in new talent, better talent, and because they're not just going to give them the money, they're going to give them advice on what to do with the money, and build them up. They have so many big names under them. I don't think they're going to want to like have some like people like Alien Worlds and Axie and Atari and CryptoKitties and then fail with Upland. I think they're going to want to keep their reputation.
Oh, 100%. And to that point, what I hope that they do is they reinforce customer service. That is where you live and die by that sword. And luckily, and this goes back to when I worked in California in the entertainment industry, you literally have taken up all the oxygen in the room. Get your tank box.
Dive in, Cheese, dive in.
I know, I'm sorry. If you don't allow look, the players have literally upheld the entire base of onboarding, the entirety of it. And they're the ones who have been onboarding new players and literally shuffling them through how to play and having them come into, and we answer all the questions. We are their support, the players. Morecheese is the electricity in the UDU that keeps it running. Without her, we don't have the core functionality of the UDU. We rely on her to do that. And then that's how this is all kind of playing out, in my opinion, right? And so they need to do that, Morecheese. They've got to put the influx of capital behind support. Customer service at the same time in parallel. You got to get the stability for these city releases, the mechanics, the legits. They're great ideas, but you got to get them right.
I think that much money and their reputation, I have a feeling that there was a contract in place where they probably, most likely, Animoca has some say in how they're going forward to kind of guide them in the right directions. Because like, they're for Metaverse games. They're for like, I think I'm going to keep a positive on this, and I'm going to say that it's going to be something that is going to turn them around.
Well, I see you're this, because what if it's more of just oversight that slows everything down,
But do you think someone with that reputation will take that chance?
I don't think so.
It's like win, and then huge loss. I don't think they're gonna go for that.
We'll see.
They're gonna step in with them and kind of guide them. I'm thinking.
I guess it depends what defines a win. I guess that's probably the tricky part.
Yeah, I like your positivity, Morecheese. I hope that's exactly where they go.
She's always devil's advocate. I love it. You need to rename it. It's going to be Angel's Advocate, I think. But going back to the customer support point, it was kind of hilarious within the UDU. I know, I forget what the specific mechanics were, but Bok was really fired up about a few things. And like Bok hardly ever complains in like the open public general challenge, but channels, but he was on fire. And it was funny, I think it was him and Steve were predicting what the response was going to be. Okay, it's either going to be this cookie cutter response or it's going to be this one. And they've just fucking nailed it every time. So it was kind of depressing.
They did.
But yeah, it's kind of getting back to those squaring away the city release details and that sort of stuff. Now, I've always said, if there's an issue with, the core blockchain functionality, we can take those challenges on board because, we know that they're at the cutting edge of what the technology can handle and that sort of thing. But the problem is it's these comedy of errors. Like Nashville was a primary example. You release a city and then right in the middle of that, they dropped all the legits and players were having to click through, like, I think, didn't you say TM had like 40 packs he had to unlock? I mean, that's just poor management and poor foresight. There's no excuse for that.
When I heard that, because I wasn't available for that opening, when I heard that and the frustration that TM had went through on that, and again, not a guy that you want to get be upset with you, right? That's just, from knowing TM, and he is the #1 property holder in terms of amount of property in the game. He owns 14,000+ properties in Upland. And I think the next to him is 7,000, maybe. I don't know if that's even close. So that had to be massively frustrating. And yes, that is just, you can't have that happening. I just don't know how you don't see that on a schedule. I don't know.
Do you think it's a feature of like, it's kind of an unusual situation. Like I've been part of a number of beta testing projects, and the core team is always playing the game. They're aware of the frustrations and the challenges because they play the game. Now we know with Upland, probably because it's the financial aspect, the team members aren't allowed to play the game. They're not allowed to have accounts. They're not allowed to play the game. So they don't actually know the quirks and the challenges and the ins and outs and that sort of thing. Do you think there's a kind of a miscommunication there almost?
I think that's part of it. I also think that you're delegating responsibilities and roles, which is tough for, I think, all three of us to do at some point. And we have had struggles with that because we want to be in control of everything and make sure everything goes right. But delegating those roles off and then having them actually produce upon that. You know, somebody is ahead of the development team that is in the production cube that works for Upland. And they all have their intercommunications, and they may be younger or they may be, strapped in language. And then all of a sudden the button gets pushed and then they go, time to go home. And then they just,
the Friday afternoon clangers, we call them. Yeah.
So that's what I see it. I don't know how else, if I would have been in New York, and I pose this question to you both, would you have had the stand-up ability to go in front of E10 and Dirk and say, thank you for the steak and lobster. Now let's get down to brass tacks, fellas.
Yeah,
This, I want to know, help me understand.
Help you.
Yeah, it's very environment moment. Help me help you,
And I have ideas. Like I have so many great ideas. Like, all right, so I make NFTs. What do I do before I put them on the main net? I put them on a test net. They can't play the game. Why not create a test net for them to play in?
Yeah.
We talked about that.
That seems so easy. Like let them get in, let them play in a fake version of Upland, and just kind of go for the minting, see what happens, and blah blah blah.
I'll tell you why I think that is Morecheeese. I think that is due to plate spinning. And if you've ever been in that scenario, you literally have this idea and you spin the plate on it, and then you're like, great, that looks great. It's going fine. It's gonna, we added that. Oh, wait a minute. And then before you know it, instead of actually solidifying the base part of the core game, you're too busy spinning plates and you have.
All right. So then get a group of beta player. Well, get a group of side players to play in the test net and give them a specific amount of fake UPX and have them test it.
Yep. Most better games have that system in place.
Exactly. Yes, they do.
Yeah.
So like for me, I'm wondering, why don't they have something like this? Like whenever I'm a big 7 Days to Die fan, and I go on Ravenhurst mod. I mod it with the Ravenhurst map because it's a lot harder to play on, more challenging. And before they put out any new alphas, they have testers come in and just kind of try their best to find as many mistakes and issues. Like, I'm sure people would fall over their feet trying to sign up for this.
That's the kind of the issue, I think, because there's a financial aspect. I think if there was a core group within that team, I think there would be a lot of, kind of insider trading allegations, even if it was total bullshit. I think that would.
It doesn't even have to be the right names. It could be
different
names.
But
like there's ways around everything.
Of course. Yeah, for sure. I think the Upland team is probably just very wary of going down that path for that kind of financial reason. But who knows? Because like every other better game has that system in place. And kind of speaking to what you were saying, Uplando, as far as, putting your opinions out there. Well, that's what that's how this show, Whine and Cheese, was formed, because I'm always whining. Often to the, I always say every time I post something in feedback, well, there's another nail in the coffin for my, my better business or something like that. I'm always, you would be horrified at the amount of posts that I've written and then deleted, just thinking, just there's too many nails in the coffin already.
I told him if he ever wanted a vent to just send me a message.
Yeah. how many times have we seen ourselves go and pound out something in general in another channel and think back and go, oh, that wasn't the best look. I need to get rid of that. But yeah, that has happened. To the part about the test net and things of that nature, you are working with a live active blockchain. You know, you're minting things to EOS. You'd have to bring that over and create that. But I think that they just have a simulation that they work off of, as many of these do. Like when the World Health Organization runs off of a RNOD simulation. So.
The Atomic Hub testnet or the Polygon testnet. Like they have so many testnets that you could just kind of, I'm sure they can create a testnet for Upland.
They could probably, I think they have the Whopper, that's the War Games machine that's just running against it, and they think, oh, that's good enough. We'll go with those numbers and we'll work with that. It can't be any worse than that. They have learned, I will say they've turned off certain aspects in the game where you can't collect your UPIX on your earnings. You turn off other elements of the game. I think that they're literally padding sends to bank sends. They're doing events prior to the opening of a city so that the sends you don't have to have readily available, so that error message isn't in there. They're doing little things, Morecheeese, to not have to go into that test development, because it's just going to take too much time and money for them.
But the thing is, it would kill two birds with one stone. It would let them personally, like people who say, oh, I wish I could play the game, but I can't because I work for them. They can play the testnet game.
Yeah, and this would also be the onboarding, in my opinion. The mission that you do, it's just a resettable game, area that you go into, and you're okay, we're going to mint this, it's Texas, we're going to mint it. And that's part of the onboarding experience. So whenever new groups come in, they can onboard and people can teach them how and learn. There's so much to do, and we can all look at this from the outward perspective and not having access to under the hood, because that's the thing that always prevents us from actually knowing what's going on. So got to give them a little bit of leeway. But
I give them so much leeway, Ben, right?
You do. Yeah,
I really do.
And I'm the opposite. But yeah, I think it goes back to what you said before. It's kind of a reactionary mindset. Now, if using your example with the sends, front loading the sends, well, you're painting over the cracks in the foundations. You're not addressing the crack. You're just painting over it. That's never going to end well long term.
It'll hobble along it'll work until it doesn't work. That's how it goes, right? Until people just dig their heels into the ground and say, I'm going to jump out until this gets figured out. I'll come back in 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, and we've seen that happen already, haven't we, with some of their OG player base? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Now, Cheese, anything before I jump in with another point?
Don't make me get the brush, man.
No, I'm just taking a breath.
Get the brush.
All right. I'd like to go back, Uplando. I'd like to go back. Now, I don't know if you want to touch on it or at all, or how deeply. Now, part of that initial conversation with Invenom when I reached out to you in DMs was for a project that you had kicking along. You know what I'm referring to? If you don't want to get into it at all, that's fine. But
no, we can talk about it. And if that's school, otherwise than the NFT project for Green Rabbit, we can talk about it.
No, I was thinking way back beyond that with the radio situation.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, we can go through that, and I'll be as timely and succinct as I possibly can. Look, I'll be extremely transparent, and there's, like I said, you get an opportunity in this game to make acquaintances with people, and then that progresses hopefully into a friendship, and then you can start to talk business. Now, when those things fast track themselves, there can be problems because you don't get to vet each other as well. You don't get to know each other as well, and so forth and so on. So, yeah, if you haven't had at least one conversation when you're inebriated with one of the people that you know, you haven't lived yet. So if you haven't met that milestone and had to follow that up with, I may have been just a little bit off my rocker, but I hope you understand and you can forgive me for that. I think everybody's done that. But one of the things that I had done in progressing this, in my application for beta business, I had put that I wanted to own the first and operate the first radio station in Upland. That was something that I put in my beta business plan as a side note, so I could have it in there. And Upland Radio was something that I wanted to progress because of my aspiring to. Left House was the first guy that I met on the block that was doing the Upland Action News. that was some of my first experience with somebody that was actually talking about the game outside of the game. And I was like, what? Who are this dude and a dude in a mask, a luchador mask, that are on the show? I couldn't get my mind. I didn't know what I was seeing. I was like, is this public television? And it's just, it was tough for me to understand. But that had gotten over to a discussion with Envenom, and we had talked about it. There had been a skeleton business plan and a budget, and we kind of got the green light for that. But the problem is that I didn't want to introduce something if it didn't bring value, if it didn't bring something new, if it didn't fill a hole, and it didn't speak to people in the way that I wanted to speak to people. So that's been put on hold. It hasn't moved forward. I don't know how much else detail you want me to go into that.
Oh, that was tied into, as far as I'm aware, that was tied into what Up Squared Land was kind of envisioning to be. Like when we got those early stages of what Up Squared Land was going to be, everyone was super pumped. And am I right in thinking that was tied in with that? It was going to be part of that whole situation?
Yeah. So UP2land.com and all that, it was going to be, it would have been either on its own separate or plugged directly into that third-party utility tool that you could use. The ultimate idea is, Grand Theft Auto, where you could drive around and you could mosey around and have Upland Radio on there. You could go and listen to podcasts. Players could come on and select the time that they wanted to have, 15, 45, 30 minutes or whatever, and produce their information. And then we could also put ads in there. So come on down to Morecheese's, NFT shop, where you're going to get the best pixelated NFTs you ever seen, or crack on over to Ben's Midtown TSU North, sell some land, that stuff. I do that out of love, but those types of things, we were trying to put this element of gamification in with the radio and bringing people together and listening to people and having a voice. I dig that too. Like you said, Morecheeese, jumping in the cafe and listening to voices, and they have people, put that name with the avatar, that voice with the avatar, I guess.
Yeah. And like we did see, and when I had that conversation with Envenom about that, when he kind of outlined what you were envisioning, that's when I reached out again. I thought, let me know how I can help. This sounds like a killer idea. Now, we have seen that, of course, Up Squared Land has died and is very unlikely to ever eventuate into anything. In the absence of all that, I'm not sure if it's directly related, but it does seem related, that in the absence of that and what that was, looking to become, you've kind of, the Upland Cafe was already there, but it was kind of not. And then you've kind of taken that on and pretty much made it your own.
Yeah, that's the big segue. That's the thing that I'm most, I want to say that I'm most proud of, but I'm most polarized to in the game, is that there was Scooby and one other player and myself had asked the team to open up the voice channel. We had the stage. The Upland stage had been something that had been in there. Morton X1 had gone in there, and they'd done a couple things, but it didn't really work for them, right? It didn't kind of really pan out, or they just didn't have enough time to do it. And so when we asked for a player cafe, which had been in the roadmap, right? We'd all seen it there, that we asked for it, and Mort said, "Do you guys want a voice channel?" Boom, Upland Cafe. I don't know who named it that. I think it was Mort or someone that had done that, X1 maybe. I think maybe Mort. And then that on top of a chat, that on its just a voice channel. We got it for Santa Clara, which we had a great time because Morecheeese, myself, and others were in there, and we got to strategize real time. And I was like, let's go over here, let's go over to North 101, let's grab all these properties, and we did that, and we got to speak with each other. Now, we've been doing that prior in the UDU Zoom meeting, when UDU would get together and mint these openings of these cities. It was the first time that Discord of itself, the entire community, could go in and do that. And then directly after that, I just sat there and just kind of watched it, because we didn't have these back-to-back city releases. And I already knew, I was already, in my laboratory thinking, you know what, I'm going to watch this channel and see what happens. And then I'm going to pick my time, and I'm going to test Upland Radio in the cafe. That is absolutely what I was doing. And one of those days I had gone in there, I had talked to somebody in New Players, and I said, hey, go to the cafe. It's this channel, and I'll talk you through it, and I'll fast track you through it. And that was the first iteration of that cafe.
I think you should have your own channel there, like Uplando's like radio, or Upland, like something really clever Uplando. Like have a the cafe for people to talk, and then have a show where you kind of have you know what we do, like your own people on to discuss things one on one, and I would watch that every day if you did that.
It's a good mention, and here's I always do movie and music references. I'll take this back to Almost Famous, when the famous Russell Hammond from Stillwater says, "Didn't we all get in this to avoid responsibility?" And
No! There has to be with awesome. There has to be a small. I mean, yeah, like I don't know.
I know what you're saying.
You got to the point where
Yeah.
people know you and like you. You don't even
Absolutely.
have to build that. So, like the responsibility that would come if you were new is so much lower right now.
It's having to do the show on like Left House is a perfect example of this. I've watched that situation where when Left House first started, 20 minutes before the show, he'd throw on a tie and he'd go, "All right, Upland Action News, here we go." And he would just cover Upland. Now he's this big, right? He's now having to cover, and he's covering, he didn't have to, but he's literally blown past that 1,000+ membership subscription rate. And he's gone on to everything that's new and wonderful in the world of NFTs, and he's sharing that with everybody. We don't see him anymore in Upland.
Yeah.
He's not there. He's become this persona that's gone and blown up past that, and is including all these different metaverses. For me, I like the ability to say, I'm going to be in there in 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Sometimes I have up to 2 hours ahead of time, maybe starting a day ahead. I'm a ponderer. I'm a slow progressor. And I think that this suits me because I don't want to put something out there that attracts people and then I let them down by not being there on a scheduled time. And so for now, I appreciate the smaller. It's like being in a band and playing a 20 seat, in front of 20 people and in front of 200 people versus 2,000 and 20,000 people. It gets intimidating at some point, and you just want to help people. I don't know where it's going to go from there. I take your input and I will consider it highly. So you do something.
Yeah. Further to Morecheese's point. Now, I listen into the cafe when I can. Like I might be doing the dishes, or I just got home from work and I'm blasted and I don't want to think too hard, so I just put it in and listen in. And I've heard some really incredible conversations, and I've been actively part of some really good conversations. But it's really is that be there or be square kind of situation. Now, we do have a 24/7 player base, and thinking back to the real world, like network television is pretty much dead. Radio is pretty much a dying art form. It's all moving to this on-demand streaming. Have you put any thought into making the segments that you do in these, like some of those, I think I might have caught the tail end of when Idan was in the cafe or something, some really incredible information dropped there, but then it's lost to the ether,
Yeah, again, it goes back to that being in a speakeasy kind of thing. If you were there, or were you at the Bottleneck in Lawrence, Kansas when Nirvana played? Were you at the show when Mike Watt played at the Bottleneck and Eddie Vedder showed up? That kind of thing, where it's got that appeal when you're there, and then all of a sudden this person shows up, an old school player. Sometimes we schedule those things in advance. Upixland currently has something cooking up, and in the next 48 hours, 72 hours, they're going to be in the cafe and drop news and information in there.
Yep.
Not that I don't know. I like that nuance to it. I like it. Yeah, you got to be in the know. You kind of got to be in the cafe. That's the channel that we hang out in. It's our clubhouse. But yes, it will progress into where I probably record. I don't want to have the legal part of it recording other people's voices, right? And then not want to be. So I got to be conscious of that. But I'll do what I can, and I'll try.
What about something like, not to go to that extreme then, but what about having like some kind of scheduling framework? Like you kind of almost have that now, but like obviously Morecheeese and I could jump in for a half an hour and have a wine and cheese segment, or there's it might be the Portage Park guys or guys and girls, or what about that kind of situation?
So it goes back to the radio scenario where you have to be a program manager, and I don't want to be a program manager. I
remember you saying that way back in those early conversations. You said the exact same thing. Yep.
I want to be the talent. I want to be able to walk, I want to be what I aspire to be. When I watch WKRP in Cincinnati and I watch Dr. Johnny Fever go on the radio, and do his thing, I envisioned that so that there could be this personality that I could go on and become for an hour out of the day and take all the oxygen up in the room, Morecheeese, as I tend to do, and be Uplando for a little while.
I know exactly what you need. You need a Morecheeese. That's what you need.
No, don't we all need a Morecheeese?
Yeah.
We all need a Morecheeese.
But you're not stealing my Morecheeese. Let's just get that out there.
Hands off. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think to all of your point on that, Upland, the cafe has been something that I've really enjoyed. I'm also a moderator, so I got a foot in each camp, as it were, and it's hard to balance that out. And I try to be a balanced voice in this entire game, right?
Yeah.
And I try to see both sides of it, and I try to help out where I can. And I learned that from T. Davis. I hate to do that because he's my opponent. He's like the guy that you want to praise, but you don't want to because I'm in competition with the guy. You know what I mean?
He's a great human being.
I wrote down, when you mentioned TD before, I put a point down, but we kind of moved ahead. But that's a perfect segue to go back. Now, I have huge respect for TD because he's somebody that I know he can be, and I've mentioned this a few times, he can be absolutely boiling inside, like some of the DMs we've had. And then 10 minutes later, he's on the UpX podcast. Hey, how's it going? It's TD here. And just calm as, like, talking through things from a neutral perspective. I'm like, man, I just do not have that ability. I'm just like, geez.
Can you imagine having that cat as an old man? I mean, he's one of the most intimidating looking dudes. And then he furthers that personification by having that fongu, that pinky fongu thing that he does. I mean, he has Little Italy. You come to him, he literally is the Godfather. You feel like you're going to the Godfather and you say, he's Marlon Brando. What can I do for you? You feel like that's what you're doing, but he's a great guy, and I'm in competition with him for the Block Explorer stores. The guy could be gone for 2 years and come back, and he would just have a flood of support behind him. So, yeah.
Speaking of your Block Explorer shop, no, I don't know this officially, but are you tied in with Nitrin and the Dog Patch Crew?
That's interesting. I'm my own island in that whole thing. I kind of have been. I went in with a couple other players that we were all, Wall Street Satoshi and one other player that doesn't want to be named yet, but we had gone in and devised an approach. We weren't letting too much out to each other because we wanted to be, they weren't in competition. They were both decor. I was blocking for, so we helped each other. But what was the question? I lost it. I'm so sorry.
I was just wondering if you were part of because we know the Dog Patch is coming out of the gate with, I think it might be 3-3 or 4-4. They have a significant chunk of the licenses within their neighborhood.
Huge. And Ben, as you know, we were to select one city. It could either be Fresno or it could be San Francisco. Those are the two cities you can put your Block Explorer store in. I have kind of taken all of the strategy off the table of that, and I haven't committed to anyone. I bought up a significant amount of shopping center area in Fresno. I know that that's where T. Davis had signaled that he was going to go with the Little Italy project. I don't know where I'm going yet. I won't know until they tell me. Now, I have built structures that would otherwise not be a structure that you would go into a storefront or a store, hoping that will help me and aid my way with the Explorer store. But if I can have one in Brooklyn, in New York, in San Francisco, if I can have them in all cities, I'll put them there, and I'll have to strategically find out how I'm going to do that.
Yeah, I won't speak to names, but I have had players recently reach out and say, can you help me put a list together of the better business owners, because we want to encourage them to come into our neighborhood in our city. and they were kind of a bit surprised to find out, well, actually, no, the Better Business shops, as we know them, are tied as part of the application process. You had to nominate whether you're going to be in San Francisco or Fresno. Now, there is a significant section of the player base who have very little or no properties in those two cities. It's going to be very interesting to see once shops are released in, well, first of all, backtracking a bit, it's going to be interesting to see if that's going to change and if we can nominate in other cities, because there's been no framework put in place yet. Now, they have always said San Francisco first, but it's San Francisco first for like 5 minutes. So I don't know how that's going to play in. I don't know how fast, once we have these initial shops open, how fast they're going to onboard new players and new licenses and that sort of thing. It's going to be interesting to see how all that pans out.
It should be a 7 degrees of bacon situation where you can have, you should be in multiple cities, period, end of story. I need to have a central, United States location, a coastal location, so that it only takes a train or a bus ride to get to me, not an airplane ride, just to go to buy a Block Explorer. That means that players have to spend 2,000 UPIX in some cases to get from place to place just to buy an Explorer to go into these shops. Now that is easily done in the NFLPA because they've got all these cities that they're opening for the NFLPA. So why not allow our Block Explorer stores and decor stores to be in all of the cities and use that as a template going forward? Hopefully they'll do that, Ben. I hope.
I did invest specifically in some large areas within Fresno and Manhattan for that purpose if we were going to be able to expand. I've been on a flipping rampage and I've constantly seen those in my inventory thinking, oh, I'm not going to sell them just yet because it's just kind of in that you never know factor.
Yeah, I mean, just look, it's like anywhere else. There's pizza shops up and down New York in Manhattan. There's 100 plus, I guess, would be my guess in there. So why wouldn't you have Block Explorer stores that are more readily available? I mean, I think 2 per city, or at least 1 per city to start with, is right. I think 1 per city. I mean, Morecheeese, will you do an NFT application if you can and go into NFT business in Upland?
Yeah.
You would do that? And you would want an NFT store in each city, right? I mean, presumably?
I mean, if I could, I would, but if I had to choose one, I would probably pick Chicago.
Oh, Chicago. Are you Portage Park? Are you on the bandwagon?
Well, only because Chicago you can get to Chicago from anywhere.
Oh, that's true.
Like,
yeah,
it's like the center. You have to get to Chicago to kind of take whatever train you want to take to get anywhere you want to go to, and that's the central hub. So I think Chicago would be the one that I would. Yeah, but if my heart is in San Francisco. I might have been born in New York, but my heart is in San Francisco and MTU. So to your point, I would love to have my starting store in MTU and then have
because you have that big cheesy apartment building in MTU.
Yes, my big block of cheese.
Well, speaking of that, like you mentioned, Uplander, that you can get pizza all up and down the strip in New York. Have you ever bought a pizza out of an apartment building?
No, that I haven't done. The bottom of an apartment building, there's been a
storefront. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it's always been like an ad hoc grocery store. Like if you go into LA and you go downtown where they've got these giant buildings that have all been turned into condo or apartments, they'll have little, otherwise what would be a sort of grocery store where you could pick up just the essentials to get by, but you would never go to you never go there to do your weekly shopping. You would go to a giant grocery store. And that's what I think that they need to do and make it an actual structure. But the NFLPA stores are townhouses that we've seen outside of the house.
It's kind of mind blowing to see New York getting filled up with townhouses and ranches and low-rise apartments.
I have not gone on with the building of the structures. I did early on, and I'm still building, but I'm not building as many on these base structures. They are Genesis structures, but still, I think they'll always be there, and they'll progress those a little bit more. So,
you think they'll ever come up with something called upgrade. Let me explain. So let's say you have a townhouse in an area that you would like to change it to eventually a storefront. And you can like add that to your townhouse for a certain amount of spark hours, and it would
Right.
kind of evolve and upgrade into that. Like, so you don't have to tear down whatever you made. You just have
Credits,
to pay.
basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like evolve to it, upgrade.
You know, what we were told early on is that we would have to deconstruct if we
Yeah.
weren't a structure. I remember that earlier on. I think it would be better to upgrade Morecheeese.
Yeah.
Like, they might get that advice from their new funders, their new sugar daddies. Sugar daddies. You know, they
Yep.
might be like, hey, you know, instead of having them you destroy their hard work that they most likely paid a lot of UPEX to rent Spark for, let's give them the opportunity to add on to it.
Yeah.
And that
No,
shouldn't be hard.
No, you'd think there'd be a Spark Hours credit system, you know. You would think, like, common sense, but, you know, that hasn't got us very far so far, so.
Yeah. Again, we'll see what happens. I really need to be reinvigorated with the fact that they've got Block Explorer stores coming. We all need something that's gonna, you know, charge the base player, you know, new players coming in, all the players that are just been in 3 months, 4 months, they're seeing everything that we've seen. We just shining it on a little bit longer. And so because we have such an investment into it, we've got so many things going. We've spent so much time. I've never been involved with an organization that I've spent this much time in over a period, if it wasn't a full-time job. It is what keeps me coming back. The community, having players like you two, Ben and Morecheeese, to continue my gameplay on and have some kind of thread. People say there's nothing to do in Upland. Well, what we did was we created everything outside of Upland to supplement what wasn't in Upland. And that has otherwise become these businesses. It's become these communities. It's become these kind of outlets that we have, you know, to go into the cafe and talk to each other about our frustrations and air all that. And Upland's they've got a high bar to measure up to coming into 2022.
I'm gonna give a prediction. I'm gonna say that I've been trying to learn Blender to help Ben out until, like, you know, he gets his bearings or whatnot, because I feel like they're gonna spring all these things out on everybody in the new year. I think once the new year comes and they're able to kind of start using this funding, because they're not going to use it for the end of the year books. They want to kind of have whatever they have already set for the end of the year. They're not going to do anything. They just want to get done what they had to get done. Once the new year comes out, bam, you're going to be hit with it. Like right now, they're setting the foundation. And we're pioneers. You know, we're the ones that are lucky. You're gonna have to be ready, because they're gonna be like January 2nd.
We can't be ready. You know, that's the thing.
But
like,
you have to be ready preliminary. You have to do it on your own, Ben. You can't have people hold your hand. Like I'm telling you, like, start. You know,
I've been ready since February.
But it's
beta.
It's beta. Like I think they're gonna this new year, right off the bat, they're just gonna surprise everyone.
Block Explorers, they can definitely just say you're live next week. They can definitely do that, because Block Explorer shops aren't yet able to create their own content. They have to use what's in the system. They cannot do that with outdoor decor. There's going to be a significant period where we need the time to produce the NFTs. We need the specs. You know, they can't just drop it and say, okay, outdoor decor is live next week.
Be ready for anything.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
To some degree. I think that, and to Ben, both of you, the Block Explorer stores should get dropped before the end of the year. We should learn the mechanics of how that works. We are going to have a couple of things that I'm very interested to learn in terms of what kind of data we're going to get based upon how we run these shops, how we are going to take merchant fees, how we're going to able to collaborate with other players to put block explorers on consignment, how we're going to price these things. I mean, we really need to have ultimately a third-party tool. If they don't give us in-game, how much is a block explorer for the Love Bus going in San Francisco, how much is it going for San Francisco? Like, who's going to have what in what stores, and how are you going to accumulate that stock, right? All those things, I think, for the beta block explorers, you know, I'm chomping at the bit to be first, but man, sometimes it's not best to be first. It's you know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's best to just to get all the bells and whistles and things after that. We're going to be working through all the bugs. Can you imagine how much tech support we're going to have to do as block explorer store owners, and support that we're going to have? And that affects our business review, our business score. So to your point, Morecheese, you know, being in that beta business group and being frustrated for so long and not being able to move forward, we just want the foundational information so that we can. I feel what's going to be the problem is that I've initiated agreements with block explorer artists, and they have created some amazing block explorers for me. And I want to get that into the hands of people as soon as I can. I want to be able to create my own custom ones, as I'm sure Ben wants to get started in decor. It's going to be slow, but Morecheese, you couldn't be more right. As soon as 2022 opens, the floodgates are going to open, and we're going to have too much. We're going to have too much probably, which is, again, watch what you ask for. Be careful.
Another question for you, Uplando. So you have the thing for the Block Explorer store, right? So let's say I want to sell my Block Explorers. I would go through you, and you would get a commission from my sales.
As I understand it, and as other people have misunderstood it or have understood it better than me, that you will be able to potentially trade block explorers from player to player. But yes, if you wanted to sell it, you would have to go to a block explorer store to be able to put that on consignment. And then yes, I get a commission. I think this is the thing. Here's the rub. I'll get a commission. Upland gets a little chip into the bucket of the community pool of UPEX. And then Tilia, if that's your gateway processor for USD, they're going to get a percentage. So right now it's 5% goes to the till of Upland when you sell a property, 5% goes to Tilia when you want to process this out to USD. So you're 10% in the hole already. And when I take a percentage, now you're 15% in. Let's say if everybody takes 5%, you're 15%.
That's still not terrible. That's still not terrible.
It's not terrible.
Redbubble takes a crap load more.
Yeah, and Apple takes 33% or something. So yeah.
And so when you're dealing with people that when you're not on ETH and you're paying gas fees and you're buying large pieces of art, yes, that's where it doesn't count. When you're on Wax and you're counting your pennies, that's where it counts. Yeah. And so in Block Explorer terms, people are going to be like, I have a Block Explorer that I sold for $300 and I'm only getting $250 back for it or something. You know, it's going to be, whoa. Yeah. You know,
well, the simple answer is we have no idea.
We have no
idea. Yeah.
We're guessing. But yes, that's the way it'll work. Morecheese is that I understand it.
Yeah.
Right, that's cool.
That's kind of interesting that you say it's sometimes not better to be first and to get those teething problems out of the road. And I think if we go back to the UDU and the concept of node building, that's a classic example. Like, look at all the shit we've gone through, like all the blowback publicly, all the internal struggles and the frustrations and that sort of thing. I spend a lot of time in kind of consultation with these new node groups. I'm always happy to be a supporter of these new node groups that are kicking off to help them avoid some of the pitfalls that we've been through. Like, it can be a simple idea. Hey, perhaps you might want to change this or look out for this and that sort of thing. And we've seen the Icon group start to go through some of these struggles. And I think eventually all of these node kind of neighborhood groups, they will go through a lot of these problems because you're dealing with community basically.
The one good thing, Ben, and you're right, absolutely right. UDU has went through all these growing pains, 3 versions of the growing pains, and the importance is going to be if in fact there can be different cities chosen, the one thing you're thinking that the team has said is this: getting neighborhood points to progress a neighborhood that isn't in a collection to a collection status or a higher collection status. Yeah. And that does mean that if Nish with his dog patch has 3 beta, block explorer and 3 decor, that's going to just shoot dog patch into the stratosphere. TM wants to do that with Sugar Hill in San Francisco. There are going to be Portage Park that are going to be, and if they let us and allow us to be courted by different cities, then maybe these cities will give up, a specific piece of property or let us go in with a joint ownership of property to be able to put our stores in and service their neighborhoods and get those player scores higher. That is the only positive, the real big positive that I've seen come out of this, of us being held back because of the neighborhoods and how many other extra players have come in and start to fill these neighborhoods up, the populated areas. So we'll see. Yeah.
Cool. There's a few more things I'd like to touch on. Perhaps first going back to speaking about your role within the UCN and as a moderator. What's your kind of take on that? What's your day-to-day kind of, how you play that out?
So I had applied for, I'll go to moderator first and then I'll segue over to UDU. I had
UCN, I meant, sorry, not UDU.
Oh, UCN or UDU? Which one?
UCN.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
For UCN and the moderator part of that, I had wanted to follow suit with T. Davis. Every time that I asked him a question and he answered it, I would put that in a text document that I now have termed the Upland Tome of Knowledge. That's what it is. It literally is a question, answer, how to, step by step, click this, click this, click this, click this, literally like verbose instructions, paint by numbers, if you were. And it's all text, no graphics. And it's terribly written. Its sentence structure is horrible. The spelling is atrocious, but I'm trying to help people. And so I don't have somebody that I can, and I haven't delegated somebody to go through there like a Morecheeese, what we all need to be able to help me to go through that, or another player to help me because I haven't delegated properly. But it is effective in that it helps new players understand what they're getting into. As I continue to progress that and went in the steps of those players before me, like T. Davis, I applied for moderator and didn't get it because I didn't have enough time into the game. And the show us where you've helped players in the past. I don't know what crazy, silly things I had put down, but it wasn't enough. I just started to do what others had done before me and I was the role of moderator. I was acting as a role of moderator. And then eventually the team had asked me if I wanted to come on and to do that. I struggled with it because I didn't want to have my name in gold be some kind of elitist set aside that now that I got to this position, I can just sit back on my throne and yes, do this and do that. So I took it pretty seriously and I let it overwhelm my gameplay. It has actually deterred from my gameplay. It has lessened the sharpening of my skill set when being a player and minting and doing research into new cities and making the maximum, go of my gameplay to help be a traffic cop. I said this on the UPX podcast. I'm basically a traffic cop that goes, I'll go over here, go to there, go to there, go to there. Mm-hmm. And then being a contributor, I tried to do that with the YouTube channel, and then that just didn't gel with me. So it's easier for me being a UCN moderator. I'm a part of the UCN in that I create content by going into the cafe and running my mouth for an hour and a half and hopefully helping somebody in doing so. And that's how I got into it, and that's where I am now. And we'll see how the future holds. We've had a lot of turnover in the UCN and the UCN moderator groups. So that's really where I'm at.
Did you want to touch on anything there, Cheese?
No.
All good?
Sure.
Yeah, and we have seen like I see it from an outside perspective, the UCN moderators within the channel, they often get a lot of blowback as far as, you're in the club, like you said, or, insider trading almost sort of situation. Can you can you speak to what it actually entails as far as your involvement with back channel discussions with the team?
Yeah, most of that is to report on the issues and problems that affect us all, that are game issues. Again, we are basically we're not in a real true moderator position. We're in an ad hoc support position. We are support. We are the front line of support for the community managers that would be a Lisette or a Gary or a Squalmuzza. They have things that they're dealing with on the, under the hood. We're trying to funnel these problems to the right people. Does this go to Andrew in support? Does it go to Toddy in support? And we get to know all these people, and then we try to make the best estimation of sending players to these community managers and these support role members that can take care of their problems, because we don't have that. We can't reset your password. We can't unban you if you've been banned. We can't do certain things that otherwise they would presume that moderator role has to be able to do. So ultimately, we are just there to help that the community stays safe, that we don't have anybody that's got any so discouraging or aggressive language or aggressive type of scams that go on, all those things that infiltrate a community and make it go south. We try to manage and handle. That's what we do. And you know what I miss out on the most is getting into and having time to go into the, the Morecheeese led small groups of players that have these little clubhouses. And I don't get to go into those and play Cards of Humanity. I don't get to go in as often as I want to play, with my friends. I don't get to go to the playground and have that kind of fun.
I haven't been doing that much. And whenever I do go to some groups and talk, I have been inviting you.
Absolutely.
I always think of you, Uplando.
100% you do. And I tell you, that is the fastest and quickest way to get me into something is, I want to say this, and this is a really tough subject, and it speaks to this moderation thing and the role there. I set up school in Oakland, California as a neighborhood that was, it was community, it was charity, community, civic minded, and code of conduct is in there. And where people will potentially call me out on the code of conduct. And here's what I want to say. In my opinion, for different groups, there are different approaches to the content of that group. In the UDU and what we do in the UDU and how we present ourselves, you guys are a little bit more light-handed on the more, you guys go past PG-13 into the R-rated, there's language, there's things of that nature, right? It's like the overly done when you go to Netflix, is smoking, language, sexual thing. Yeah. There's a laundry list of things that you got to watch out for. So in what I mean by code of conduct, that's how us as UDU members approach other players in an inviting way, but you have to make your bones in the UDU to become a UDU member, because we've seen what happens in the turnover. So that kind of thing. If I'm over there with the nasty hooks, it is a different Uplando that's in the nasty hooks. And Absolutely. The things I participate in and do in there aren't to speak to the overall fabric of who I am as a human being and what I do. I have certain interests, and if I put a governor on myself and I don't get to enjoy and have fun and be slapstick or be,
you gotta let your hair down.
I like to razz everybody once in a while. I like to do my best Ben. I like to do my best Lucian in the cafe for a guy who's in Scotland, and
I need to hear that.
Lucian's, if you guys haven't heard Lucian, you haven't
heard him. I want to hear your Lucian.
I'll tell you what is going to be down to, but I've got to start with this single malt scotch and a cigarette that I'm going to have before you beat me up over trying to do Lucian. So I'm just telling you.
Awesome. Spot on.
Or when Lily or Ben comes in there, I do that out of, I'm trying to flatter them by producing and doing that, and doing an impersonation of them is exactly how a comedian would want to. I love comedians and I love impersonations, and I when you hear another language spoken, another perfect one is God Cecil with his French, and he comes in and he does this thing where he says, I don't understand nothing that you do, the Americans. I don't understand it. And it's all this French stuff that he does. I don't do it well, but I like doing it. And it is support of them, and it is to ingratiate them, and that they're not different. I want to be like that. I would love to have that ability to just crank on that different, persona of all the world. And that's what Upland is. It's all this melting pot, and it comes in and we find a commonality. I would love to go to Scotland and have fish and chips with Lucian and have as he says, like a scotch, a single malt scotch or a lager or something of that nature, or go, I've been this close to Australia and not made it. So it would be fun to travel around. Somebody wants to sponsor me, and then I would love to go on consignment. I would love the correspondent that goes out like E-Travel Network and go to all the different places and meet with a Morecheese and a BEN68 and a Lucian and a Nish and all these different people. And I've done that a little bit on my own, but when you meet somebody, I mean, if you guys haven't, Left House is this towering dude. He's like almost NBA player tall, really. I mean, you take it back. And when you meet people in real life, that visceral experience, what you have is the connection. It's crazy that we're so far away from each other right now. And then when you meet each other, it is different. I do hope, and X1 had said that they may do an Upland convention like thing. I asked him he was doing an auction. I said, hey, is there going to be an Upland convention? I always press these guys to tell me things. That's another thing I try and slip in, right? And he said, you never know, Genesis week. And he was like, oh, did I say that? So I could see in June, they could announce something in January. For June, there would be a meeting place. And I mean, Casey's in the middle of this, United States here with some barbecue and whatnot. You could be visiting my hometown for an Upland Con. So let's get it. I love it.
Nice.
I'd rather it be West Coast, something that Ben can maybe perhaps get to.
I won't be leaving Australia anytime soon. The next place I go to, we got to go back to Japan. My wife hasn't seen her family in near 8 years.
Wow,
So,
8 years.
yeah, because I was in the midst of doing my master's degree, and I had to save all my holidays up for prac placements, and then we've had COVID kick in and all the rest of it. So yeah,
Understandable.
yeah. I think you speaking to, I love it when I hear you doing voices and that sort of thing. I think that goes back to your kind of personal desire to be like a kind of radio personality kind of thing. So yeah, no, I think that's very cool. Just going back to something that might be to the UCN and something that might be a bit controversial. I know that you guys were kind of thrown in the deep end a little bit, where you were given some information that you probably shouldn't have been given ahead of time in regards to the NFLPA deal. Did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so I think the idea there was, I got to be careful how I do this. Thank you, Ben, for lightly softballing that in there for me. I think that the idea there was not as I think that they all thought that and presumed that everybody in the UCN understood the level of commitment that goes into that, and that the helping factor, like, again, had they have had a support team in position, this wouldn't have been the case scenario, more than likely. And what they had done is they were letting us know that they were getting ready to do this, and it was like the next day or two that they were going to release this in. It was within some amount of hours that they were going to release this information in. And it was a lot of fun. It was for all your hard work and everything that you're doing. We want to let you know so that we could prep for all of the community to be ready for this. And this is what we're going to do. It was in preparatory. It was not, hey, you've been so good, here's a few shekels to get yourself started, or go in there and get yourself some land where nobody else. That wasn't the idea. What it turned out to be, though, some people it was the temptation of it. And having learned some inside information, that while it wasn't inside, it was meant to have a understanding that this was coming, and that it was going to take a lot of effort
to get content ready, right? Because it was from the UCN angle, the Upland Contributors Network. It was for you guys to preemptively get your content ready to go.
That is correct. So you could have things ready that you knew how to address that, so you could actually utilize this. That was going to be their first line of promotion for this event, and to get ready for it, and to, you know, to set this information out, spread the information out. When people come into the cafe, they get told something. And it could be, you know, somebody coming in and dropping news and information. Thank you later comes in and says, here's UPX World. This is what we're going to do next. Go spread the word. And that's kind of what they were doing and prepping us for all that moving forward. And then a little bit of stickiness got into the minting of some properties that were near or right on top of those areas that were going to be announced, and these stadiums and whatnot. And it got a little out of hand, but I'll tell you this from the firsthand experience, the exuberance and the excitement that Dirk had on his face, and it's from E10, they don't want to hold this stuff back. They don't want to not tell us what's coming. They're chomping at the bit to get this out. And they were so, like I said, they were just so overjoyed to tell us this news and information. It's like, this is coming to here. This is going to help. And it just turned out to be a little bit on the negative side. They recouped a little bit. Upland is a platform like Wax or any other platform now. Legits are their brand kind of NFT, and they're going through the growing pains. And hopefully 3 months from now, that they won't have these growing pains, and that they won't have legits dropping on you when you're opening a new city, and this will all go swimmingly.
Yeah, and to be perfectly fair, that was you UCM members were put in a position that you didn't necessarily want to be in. You know, it was, you were kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. So,
we didn't know we were going into that. We just thought we were going to be talking about, and what UCN does is, and it's, as I understand it, it's kind of Dirk's, you know, it's kind of his special thing that he put together. It's his baby. And I love that he wanted people to contribute to this game, Beta Business contributing to the game. And that's what it was meant for. And he was glad to share it with us. And it had a little bit of bump in the road, but that's the other thing that I'm talking about. You got to be able to handle that information in a responsible way. And you never know. You never know what people are going to do.
Sure. All right, there's one more thing that I've got on my list to touch on. You kind of mentioned it briefly, the push you did in Oakland to solidify the school node. Can you speak to the process of that, as far as like your thinking leading up to that, the history of securing all that, and kind of, I think it'd be cool to touch on the back end of what you had to go through with FSA and all that sort of stuff, and then kind of looking ahead to what you envision that's going to be moving forward.
Yeah. So when the UD came into formation and when it started to go, you know, there was that early on when you've actually decided to become an actual member of the UDU, and then you've got your UDU number and where you're at in the list and all that kind of stuff. I was really apprehensive at first. I talked with other players, and I had even talked to you, Ben, and kind of going back and forth, and, you know, like, when are you going to do it? When are you coming on board? You know, because we all wanted to be a part of something like that. And we just weren't sure where it was going because it was the first of its kind. And I saw an opportunity there. I liked the node idea. I wanted to be a part of it. I saw school when Oakland had opened as a reveal on the neighborhood. And I thought, oh man, that's exactly what I want to do with the Upland Toma knowledge. And I want to put this into, you know, now I have an idea where I could take school as a neighborhood, a named neighborhood. And then I was already collecting churches, schools, and playgrounds where I could have a school in every single city. The home office would be in Oakland, California. And then that would be the node. And then the other representations of school could be in every other city. I own currently a school in every city that's open, and I will continue to do that. And those will be the satellite offices or locations for charity, for civic, you know, some kind of civic action that you take. And then just in the common area of the gameplay that you conduct yourself, how you conduct yourself. That's what those are for. And if it builds into, I mean, can I put a business in Oakland? Am I going to have a primary residence in Oakland? That's a little bit more of the backfire. That wasn't my hometown, especially. I'm kind of gravitated towards Fresno, but school is a movement, and it's there. It's not, if it happens to be that it makes people money as a side effect of what it originally has intended to do, then great. We've had people come and go. I'm really proud of the fact that people have not flipped their properties based upon speculation, but they wanted to be involved in it. A lot of FSA in Oakland. I still haven't gotten all my FSA. I'm out like 5 properties, but it was tough. I don't want to go through that again.
I helped you with 2.
Yes, Morecheese was every bit. Ben grabbed up some Morecheese. You grabbed up some. I've had other people buy on the secondary market and then told me they're going to be a part of it and then flip it. So it's just one of those things. It's still in a work in progress, Ben. It's a work in progress.
Alrighty. Do you have anything else you want to touch on, Morecheese? I've just thought of a couple extra things.
Well, I want to know what you are thinking in terms of the NFT.
What I want to do for the NFT?
It's not up to you.
I don't get a ton to say in it.
Mm-mm.
Nothing. I get nothing. How does this happen? Has this happened?
Nothing. Good day, sir.
I think Left House was a prime example. His one was a prime example.
Who didn't get to say?
I don't think anybody's had to say, have they?
Oh man,
No.
Be kind, Morecheese. Be kind.
No.
Oh wow, that's a question for Ben then? Is that what you're asking? What my NFT was going to be?
I did have something. Yep, I've got an idea that's coming to mind, but I'm not going to give anything.
You're not going to. All right.
Not to Uplando. I'll give it to you, obviously.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
2 more things I'd like to know. If we get together again this time next year, what are we going to be discussing?
Probably the core 3 things that I think Upland needs to be doing. The number 1 thing is onboarding. Have we gotten past the point where a new player comes in with absolutely no understanding when they hit that website? If you rated from 0 to 10, your experience with onboarding, mine would be a 2, because that would be from the core team and understanding of it when I joined. Now, if I'd have joined now, it would be a little higher because you've got some different things that have been incorporated in there. But because there's no in-game communication, that is synonymous with onboarding to me. You've got to have a way to have a player come in and go through a trainer and get to that point where they come out of it and they have a good grasp on the understanding about what this game is and how it's played. Okay. So that's the first one, onboarding. The second,
Can I just pause you there?
okay.
I'm going to do a cheese and play devil's advocate. I started in January 2020 and there was no Discord. I don't believe there was Telegram. There might have been Telegram, but it was very sparse and loose. And I just got in and played the game. I've never been part of any game, like a mobile game, because that's what it was originally pimped out as. I've never been part of a mobile game that had any sort of community-based onboarding. It's very much, and especially a beta testing version of the game, it's very much just get in and work it out as you go along.
Were there any videos for you?
I didn't know. Back then there was nothing. There was no Upland content at all. I think TML, he started like 3 or 4 days before I did, and he started talking about different this, that, and the other thing, and some content. There was early players like Engie and people like that started putting some of these information videos out. At that stage, I'd kind of already worked out the basics myself. I mean, half the fun was learn by your mistakes. I think it's different now. Like at that stage, I was coming in with, $10 here, $5 there. But now we're seeing players coming in with thousands of dollars and making mistakes that cost them thousands of dollars. So that's might be the disconnect.
And there are so many like different avenues you could go to for like advice. Like there's so many onboarding videos. Like I must have watched 5 before I even downloaded the game, because as soon as I went to the game to download it, all I noticed were bad reviews. So to me, I'm like, all right, are these just people who want instant gratification and they did absolutely no amount of research on their own, or are these people like legit in the way they're thinking? And it was the first one, like they didn't do any. So in my review, I left the review on there, and I put some of my experiences. I said, start out in a smaller city, it's cheaper. You have 7 days, join a Discord, ask questions. And I said, you know, there's videos out there that you could find in the Discord at your perusal that will help you a great deal.
Yeah, why hasn't the
It's
team
an
done
investment
that?
game. It's an
Yeah.
investment game. You don't get that in when you go to TD Ameritrade, or if you go trading Bitcoin.
You don't, but what you do get in this is that if you have a way, so it's about, and again, this goes back, it's player retention, right? If you want players to retain their spot in this game, you've got to give them incentive to do so, which is there, but you've got to at least fast track them on a trainer on how to do things. Even websites now, when you go, what's that?
Question. Do you want to retain people who do absolutely zero research and will just complain at any given moment when they're not having their hand held?
So that's how I think the stages go. You get the player, they land on the website, they go through some of the, you know, video information about what it is, an overview, but in that overview can be a 3-minute, a little bit, a brush of everything that you're going to go through, and then start here. So 3 minutes of your attention time to get through it. Some people are going to just, you know, go, okay, where do I go to get to the actual trainer, right? And then when they get into Discord, I mean, they need to say there is no game communication. You have to go to Discord to communicate in this game. And at that point,
I found that out through the reviews.
right?
Almost every single review said, "Get on their Discord. Make sure you get on their Discord."
Exactly. And that's, again, I think how I found it as well. But you've got to steer people in that. And they had the Upland Academy, which was a turbo, but it's not an active one. It should be a, you know, a monthly onboarding for all new players. You may be an expense or a cost, but that's my first one that I go back to, Ben, and that's the one that I would say we will talk about. The other one is business. It's going to be what's going on with businesses in Upland. And did that turn into huge conglomerates that come in? Now you have to be the size of an NFLPA. You've got to be the size of a Spirit Halloween to get into this. Will players actually have the capabilities to otherwise participate in this business role? I mean, are they going to have the ability to do that? And where are we from there? Where have we gone with beta business?
I've just got some news on that, some breaking news. I'm just looking in the Better Business Focus Group channel now, and X1 the Gamer has just dropped that we're going to be holding a Better Business meeting on Tuesday, November the 16th from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. What? Right, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. PT, and this is going to be relevant for all business types. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that was
Cool.
serendipitous. I guess.
It's gonna happen. I bet you. New year, be ready.
There you go.
There we go.
Nice.
Wow.
So what was your second point you were getting to?
That was it. Business. That's what I said. It was.
Oh, sorry, I was reading that.
Where in the devil are we in business now? A year later that we've actually started. We are 10 months. We're coming up on 10 months since the application process. That's a full year.
Yeah.
So when you ask me, what are we going to talk about in a year from now? It's going to be a year from being in business, and we'll see how that goes.
Sweet. Okay. How about another curveball? 5 years.
Oh.
Making loads of guap.
I think we'll look back and see who these players are that are still active in this part of it, making content. You know how long you have to be, to actually have the stamina to make content for 5 years, to be a part of a daily grind is 5 years, what it takes to be in these cities and do all this. How is the metaverses, how are they going to change? Will Upland survive, which I totally suspect they will, but will they merge with somebody? Will they have been purchased? And 5 years is a tough one. That has always been I've never been good on what's your 5-year outlook.
They may be purchased. I could see that in the future. They might be setting themselves up for a takeover, which wouldn't be a bad thing either. Like, you know, if somebody took them over that had better resources to conduct such like a metaverse blockchain game, hey.
It's one of the things that Nitron always brings up. I think it might be E10, is it? That has a history of flipping these kind of projects. It's one of those sticking points. Oh, I don't know if it's Nitron or Atomic Pop. It's one of those guys that are kind of super, not critical, but you know.
It's niche. It's niche. Serial entrepreneurs. And yeah, they could do that exactly. I'm glad that we'll be in business because we could get some notifications saying, because of the recent takeover of Upland, you will no longer be able to participate in, you know, whatever that might be.
Yeah, it could go both ways. Yeah. I think, oh, sorry, just to cut in, the 5 years part, like we've talked about this extensively within the UDU. You got to have a long-term mindset. If you want to be in the UDU and do things, you got to have a long-term mindset. Now, some people, a long-term mindset is a month. We've constantly said that's not what we're all about. Like I've just signed a contract with the UCC to do stage 1 development in Midtown Terrace. That's going to take probably at least 15 weeks. And that's just one stage of many. I'm envisioning that I'm still going to be building in Midtown Terrace this time next year before I even start on Lone Mountain, before I even start on like bulk for my own personal properties in school and all of the other projects we have.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, absolutely. Will those still have steam and will they still be alive? And will it be, you know, we would presume that there'd be 10 nodes by now that were associated to the UDU where it's slowed, you know, down and taken a little bit step back and we're vetting more players and seeing what the longevity of a player into this would be. I'm interested in that. And I'm also interested to see if, Ben, you and I get an invite to the Morecheeese unveiling of her art show that she has when she becomes famous for her pixel artwork.
So I keep saying, remember us when you're rich and famous?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's
you guys
right.
can get rid of me. I'm here to
So,
just, you know, don't get rid of me.
no, I think that you've ushered in a style of artwork that is progressing past what we thought that the little tiny, you know, pixel artwork could be. So it's gotten into this. It's gotten into these. Now there's part of a little, you know, pixel that you're getting into and learning how to stylize that and use that. And I suspect that if as you continue to progress and as you have shown your skill impresses it is impressive. So I can't wait to see what's next for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it goes back to content. Like I've been saying to Morecheeese, like just keep building your content base. You're going to pop eventually. You're going to catch some shine eventually and have the content there available to be purchased and that sort of thing. So that's why I think, you taking a deep breath and being brave and branching out into the open sea world, I think that's a very cool, positive step. So good on you. And yeah, looking forward to see how it all plans out.
Yeah. And that's it. That's all I have. After 5 years, I mean, even up to get to that 5 years, I'm kind of a 1 year, 2 year at the most, you know, always trying to be flexible in what I do. And we'll see. I'm very excited for this announcement for the beta business. And now so I told you, I'm reinvigorated now. I got another, 3 months underneath my belt that I can use the wind in my sails for. So,
well, I'm going to say something. Say something that might put some faces on you.
Uh-oh.
I see this becoming another Second Life. And speaking of Second Life, Nisharin has a club there.
He does.
And that's a metaverse thing. If he can kind of like come on and be calm, maybe we can have him talk about his club one day.
Is that the Red Door? Is that when you?
I don't know what the name is.
I think that is the Red Door. Yeah, it's what he does in Second Life. I started in Second Life. That's where I started my foray into this. And actually I started into an avatar type chat room where you would float around as an avatar and different topics or subjects into this on the internet on a dial-up really is what it was into Second Life and then on progressing into this. But yeah, Nisharin would be one of those. He's in the beta business I think Nishran obviously is. So it'll be interesting to see how he approaches this. And yeah, that could be a next guest for you.
Like, as long as there can be a positive flow of back and forth, and
all gloves are off with Niche. We don't know what we're going to get.
Let's just stop you right there, Morecheese. Are you kidding me? Oh, yeah.
You never know. You never know. Maybe some people just need the reassurance that they're going to be listened to as well.
Sure.
Yeah. So some of the best times that I've had in this game as far as player-to-player communication is, back and forward playing tennis with Niche, So if you're listening, Niche, and you want to get involved, reach out, mate. We'd love to have you on.
Great. I like it. I love it. He's been in the cafe several times. All of you have been in the cafe at some times. And a lot of people like to go in there and they call it lurking or kind of, hiding in the shadow there a little bit. And it's always fun for me to pick, you guys out and say, well, look, it's Morecheese. Come on, what do you got going on? You're like, I didn't talk. I just wanted to sit.
Yeah, that happens to me. I'm like doing the dishes and I'm like, I've got soapy hands. Hang on a minute. I don't want to leave you hanging.
So I tend to try and pull back on that, but
I'll always say hi. If you shout me out, I'll always say hi to Uplando.
I'm only in there for an hour and a half when I run my mouth, sometimes 2 hours, and of the 24 hours that it's open, and everybody's gracious and kind enough to let me do that when I announce that I'm going to do it, and it's become a thing, and we'll see how it progresses. That'll be the big thing, is if I can continue doing what I'm doing and participating in this to the level that I'm participating in. So we'll see.
Yeah, I love it too. Like it's not always about Upland. I know I've listened in on a couple of occasions where it's been extremely late in the AMs for you, I would assume, and you've been schooling us on some, aspects of your in real life kind of business and interests and that sort of thing. So that's always cool.
Yeah, it's if you give me a microphone, watch out, because now I'm going to talk. So.
Cool. All right. Is there anything else that you'd like to touch on before we wrap this one up?
Just the fact that thank you for having me on the Whine and Cheese show. This is awesome. I love the idea when it first came to fruition, and it's been great to see it progress as it goes along. I love the little hidden things in between the episodes where you got to figure it out. I mean, that took me by surprise the first time when I was watching through it and I saw it. I think that's very cool. The little drops in there. I'm probably giving stuff away I'm not supposed to, but oh well. And just I'm going to be a part of this, and I'm very thankful to know both of you and to have gone and progressed in this game, and having you as acquaintance turn into friendships is what I believe that it is. So just big love to both of you, and it's been great to have the communications and play the game with you guys. So I look for that to continue on. I really do appreciate it. It's been great.
Worst show ever.
Worst show ever.
Sure.
We'll know each other when we're like 90 years old, I promise.
Struggling to get our pinkies up. Arthritis-ridden pinkies.
Yeah, we'll just go on for it'll just have this. How do you
Cheese and I will spend the first 20 minutes. What episode are we on?
We'll have our oxygen.
Exactly. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. The artwork will be otherworldly in that time. So.
Cool. Yeah. Alrighty. It sounds like we're ready for us to wrap us up, Cheese.
All right. Get the hell out of here. We're done.
Go ahead, get your pinky up. Talk Whine and Cheese, motherfucker. Go ahead, get your pinky up. Go ahead, get your pinky up. Go ahead, get your pinky up. Talk Whine and Cheese, motherfucker. Go ahead, get your pinky up. Go ahead, get your pinky up. Eagle Empire, samurai, riding on the dingo, flying through the sky. Cheese in the house, get off, get right. Hit you with the hairbrush, hit you with the knife. Eagle Empire, samurai, riding on the dingo, flying through the sky. Hit you with the knife. Flying through the sky, Eagle Empire, samurai, riding on a dingo, flying through the sky. Cheese in the house, get off the ride. Hit you with the hairbrush, hit you with the knife. Eagle Empire, samurai, riding on a dingo, flying through the sky. Hit you with the knife, flying through the sky.